everybody. Welcome back to the Pylon Show. This is episode number 110. We have a wonderful cast here today to talk about the big news that Blizzard put out a while ago. But first, let me mention the Patreon. That's how we fund the show. Patreon.com/The Pylon Show. Go check it out. Yeah. And thepylonshow.com. Go there too. That's how we keep it going. We love you guys for supporting. Thank you so much. It's very appreciated. Okay, all that being said, this episode. So we're going to have This Week in StarCraft at the end of the show. We want to make sure that we're hitting everyone's schedules correctly, and not everyone has to be here for 5 hours or something like that. But we are going to be talking about the big news that Blizzard put out. And obviously this is a little bit late. So we did a Pylon Show episode, and then I believe like a few days later, the Blizzard announcement came out. And Katz was messaging me. He's like, "Oh, you got to do an episode on this." I'm like, "I know, but we just did a Pylon Show episode." And the thing is, before that news even came out, which, by the way, I had no idea that Blizzard news was coming out, we already had booked the Frost Giant episode. So that was like, we already had that all set in stone. And anyways, that was last week. Here we are this week. We still got to talk about it. I think people have, maybe this is better in a way because emotions have calmed. Everyone's kind of chill at this point. People aren't quite as crazy. I'm sure you're going to have something to say about that, Zombie Grub. But yeah, that's it. That's what the episode is. So I guess let me introduce the guests real quick, and we'll get talking about that. First up, welcome back, Mr. Ruff. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for bringing me back on the show.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here. Ruff, you reached out to me because you had some strong opinions about what was going on. So glad to have you for this episode.
Awesome.
And yeah, Katz, welcome back. What's up, buddy?
Not much, just chilling.
All right, excellent. And how close are you to the fires going on?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm I don't know. They had to evacuate like 60,000 people, including Matt.
Yeah,
and
the
Matt,
producer of the Pylon Show. We almost had to cancel this week, but he got to go back to his house, so here we are.
Yeah, so I don't know, a few blocks away from evacuating, I guess.
Damn, that's close. That's close. How about you, Nate? Are you close?
No. Some of the smoke gets blown over here, but no, we're good. We're good here in Vegas. We just get a little bit of a haze of the day after the fires.
Oh yeah. For some reason, my brain was like telling me that you still live down in like Burbank or whatever. Okay, yeah, you're in Vegas now. Very smart move. All right, and Zombie Grub, how are you doing?
I'm good.
You don't live in California, right?
No, I don't live anywhere close to that.
Yeah, you're Canadian, right?
That's why I'm wearing flannel. You got me.
All right. Got all that out of the way. So the announcement. I assume everyone's not living under a rock, but it was kind of a big deal. Basically, they're not going to be actively developing StarCraft 2 anymore. It hurts, right? There's no more war chests. There's no more new co-op stuff coming out. It feels like it's just kind of being left there. I mean, we can go over specific wordings within this, what they say about esports and whatnot. But I would love to just start getting some of your guys' thoughts on this situation. Who wants to start here for us? Katz, you're smiling. Tell me what you think about this whole thing.
Oh, there's just so much to talk about. I don't know how to talk about it from the beginning. Should we go over the post?
Yeah.
I have a lot of opinions on this.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it. All right. So anyways, the post, I mean, we'll link it in the show notes and all that stuff. So the StarCraft 2 update, it came out October 15th. And it says, to the StarCraft community, StarCraft is one of a kind, and we're committed to making sure that those of you who love this universe like we do have a home here for many years to come. With that in mind, we want to let you know about a development change we're making for StarCraft 2 as we continue supporting it for the long term. Already that wording, I'm like, uh-oh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As many of you know, Blizzard continues updating its games long after the initial release. Some of you will remember that we were actively patching the original StarCraft more than 10 years after it first hit store shelves. This year, we celebrated 10 years of StarCraft 2 with one of our largest ever patches, with massive updates to the editor, prestige talents for co-op commanders, and gameplay improvements delivered to players worldwide. gonna say, by the time I read through that part, I was like, oh god, they're trying to say everything good they've ever done. This is bad.
But also like it's a little disingenuous, right? Like patching Brood War 10 years after. I mean, technically, I guess, but it's not like the game ever really got much patching as far as like balance.
Yeah. So basically for people that don't know, the Brood War ladder got hacked right at the beginning of the game, like in 1999. It was hacked already, and it never got fixed.
Yeah.
There was never matchmaking on it. They put a few patches out here and there that like fixed like some really game breaking bugs, but there's still plenty of bugs that were in the game. And eventually, you couldn't even run Brood War correctly. You had to like download so much shit to get it to run before remaster came out on like a new Windows PC. So it's like,
Oh, wow.
yeah, no, it was difficult because Tasis was trying to get me before remaster even came out to download it, and like the amount of programs I had on my computer and how weird it was. Like you would have this tiny window while you looked for a game, and then you could full screen it, and it was like, oh my god, this is just, it doesn't work at all. It's like playing a DOS game in 2020 or something. Obviously, remastered fixed all that, but yeah, it's a good point to bring up, Cats.
Yeah, but even remastered, it's not really everything that they offered either. Like they don't still have the 2v2 ladder, for example, right? And so I think
that is missing, the 2 versus 2 ladder. Overall, though, I mean, I'm, as someone that plays Brood War every day, I'm super happy with it. It's like the best it's ever been, like much better than anything in the past 20 years. But I mean, a 2 versus 2 ladder would be awesome. Hopefully, they still do that.
I don't know. I like floating drones to an island using the extractor trick.
Yeah, there's a few bugs left in it. That is true.
Yeah, I think it's just important to extract the essence of like what they're saying and because the person that writes this is not the VP, right? Like it's signed by the VP, but the people writing this is obviously PR people that have to work with whatever information they're given and make it sound as nice as they can. So I think that the fact that they're comparing it to Brood War and how often the game has been updated and shit like that is really what they're trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, away with the flowers and yeah.
No, it's, I mean, when you see something worded like this, you kind of get an idea. Let me continue here. We're going to continue supporting StarCraft 2 in the same manner as we have for our, as we have with our previous long-standing games, such as Brood War, focusing primarily on what our core and competitive communities care about most. What this means is that we're not going to be producing additional for-purchase content, such as commanders and war chests, but we will continue doing season rolls and necessary balance fixes moving forward. On that last note, we're not planning a Q4 balance update, given that we did one a few months ago. But as always, we do plan to continue doing them as needed in the future. StarCraft 2 Esports, which is part of the highest echelon of professional competitive gaming, will also continue going strong as it has been through our partners ESL Gaming and GSL.
Yeah, this is loaded. I think we should stop here maybe to talk about this a little bit, or maybe not. I don't know if no one wants to talk about like what this all means, but like operating words like needed are really important. The fact that they use like at the start they basically say we're going to be focusing on what the other group wants as an excuse to withdraw themselves from the other group, which is the co-op group. But then in the same paragraph, they say there's not going to be a Q4 update, which is what I would argue what the competitive and whatever communities do care about. And that's the big end of year upgrade. Now, they say, yeah, we just did one, and that's true. What this does is set precedent to the fact that there won't be Q4 yearly updates anymore. Like I think that's what it really says. Yeah.
Well, they already downgraded the Q4 upgrade last year, right?
Yeah.
Because the previous ones that we had were like really big on mixing up the game. Then last year was kind of, they downgraded a little bit. It was like much smaller changes. And I know that we actually talked about that a little bit on the Pylon show about, is that the best way to do it? Shouldn't we mix it up a bit more maybe? But now there just is not that balance update. And yeah, it's interesting you say, because the core communities, it's like they're going to be catering to those, but at the same time, co-op is a gigantic mode, and that won't be catered to at all. That's just, sorry guys, you got what you got.
Yeah, and obviously the GSL and the DreamHack or ESL partnerships are cool, but that was already announced. It's not new information. So it's just it's just making it look nicer. The announcement.
Yeah. Ruff, what are you thinking? What do you think
So
about this?
when I actually, well, first I heard about this on my stream where they were saying, "Oh, there's this big announcement. Have you looked at it yet?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't looked at it." So then I opened up Twitter and I saw just this big stink porch. What is it called? Pitchfork fest going on with StarCraft.
Oh, okay.
And I'm like, okay, I got to read this then. And I read it, and it sounded very beautiful. Okay, the first paragraph, second paragraph, it sounded okay. It sounded all right. And I was thinking very positively about this. And now what's crazy is I thought positively up until I heard about Frost Giant. And so I actually made a YouTube video of saying, oh, maybe this is probably good. Maybe they're focusing on a StarCraft 3. And the reason I thought this way was, one, maybe they're not getting enough from the skins and, to fund it. Maybe there's not enough people buying up co-op commanders. And I thought about it logically too, like, what other commander are you going to come out with? I feel like most of the heroes have been knocked out in the game. So, someone mentioned Valerian could be one. And then after that, nobody could figure it out. It was literally just one other hero that we could think of. We had mentions of the Hyperion janitor come up on our stream, basically as a hero.
But interject for a second and say that the co-op team actually still had a lot of ideas left. So lack of ideas, I don't think is one of them.
Yeah, but apparently when I heard about Frost Giant and they're saying, hey, co-op lead for StarCraft over here now. It's like, oh, wow. So that actually changed my expectations a little bit. So then maybe they also lost someone who worked on the skins as well. And so what's the best thing that Blizzard can do right now? Maybe start a new platform if someone doesn't know how to operate the current platform since they've lost those people. So I still try to be optimistic as possible about it and think, hey, maybe they have to bring on new people. Maybe they are going to tackle a StarCraft 3 because honestly, StarCraft is the monopoly of RTS. Unless we're talking about the next best thing is what, Warcraft 3, which is still under Blizzard.
Yeah.
So that is my my opinion on it. So,
so your opinion is that the people left, and that's why Blizzard had to cut StarCraft production?
I have no idea. It's just I assume and
it's an idea.
Yeah.
There's a Reddit thread that also had that idea. And I didn't want to be a super Debbie Downer, but I pretty much was like, it's possible. Like I'll say to you, like it's possible that people were leaving, and they're like, I guess we don't have anyone to push all this work onto. But I said it was highly unlikely. People were already getting, I think, frustrated with the way that Blizzard was going, and there was already clear signs that they were pulling away from StarCraft and RTS, which led to more, decreased morale, which led to them probably more eager to move on. Like I don't think people moved on, and then Blizzard was like, "Fuck, we don't have anyone left." Which is an important thing.
More like a circle, kind of, where it's like you said, like decreased morale. People got fired, people left. Decreased morale, they're backing out funding, more people leave. It felt like a bit of a spiral. Yeah,
which I think is most apparent in StarCraft, the position that we're in amongst Blizzard's children. But if being totally honest, I mean, isn't that all we're hearing from Blizzard overall? Hearthstone wasn't apparently very happy about their YouTube changeover, and I don't know how that's gone since then. And all you ever hear is how amazing it is that Overwatch League is still alive. And how long it actually has. It's been dead game since its announcement, just like StarCraft. But you definitely hear people talk about how bad it is to work for Blizzard and how much they don't want to and how much they'd rather be working somewhere else, and all the commissioners of Overwatch League moving on to other places and whatnot. So, no doubt Blizzard being kind of an unfortunate company to work for right now contributed to people leaving, but I'm not sure how much people leaving contributed to Blizzard being a worse company to work for, you know what I mean? Like they were already getting bad.
Yeah.
Sure.
My cousin-in-law actually worked over there for Blizzard, like customer service. So, and she wasn't too enthused about it. So, what you're saying sounds pretty accurate.
Yeah, yeah. I think if you talk to people who work at Blizzard, either they'll tell you in full confidence that like things aren't exactly great, or there'll be a lot of that like tiptoeing, right? They'll be like,
Mm.
oh, it's not the best, but like, oh, I love the people that I work with,
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, no, that's good.
Yeah. That's like I've definitely heard a lot of that where it's like, oh no, the people that work there are great. It's like, yeah, no, we're all on board with that. The people that work at Blizzard are great people. But it's like the same thing where you like when you're talking about someone and you're like, he's nice. And it's like, well, if that's the best thing you have to say, oh, that's that's too bad, right? That's not what we're looking for here.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
It's an important thing to bring up though, kind of, I guess, because that is a question for a lot of people. Is it just like, yeah, I guess kind of making it, you got to make it clear that I think it really is just Blizzard overall not wanting to develop StarCraft anymore. They don't see a necessity in doing it. They don't see money returning on it. Like, not really a lot of outside factors. Some people are blaming COVID. I think was another one. They're like, COVID made people leave, and people leaving made that, COVID couldn't bring more people to California and whatever, right? And I'm just like, someone who's been in StarCraft, all of us have been, it's like, this could have come last year. I expected this last year. Last year around November, if I'm not mistaken, all of us had no idea that EPT was on the way. Or maybe around October, right? Like, basically things started to get rumors along the end of the year. But by the summit last year, we were all like, WCS was a 1-year deal this year. Like, what's happening next year? What's going on? I mean, if they had said this last year, I'd been like, that made sense. And that didn't have anything to do with COVID. So the fact that they announced it this year, I mean, is a little bit awkward, I suppose, because why not do another one? Why not do another 2 co-op commanders, another 2 war chests, and then call it quits upon the ending of the EPT deal? I guess they could have also done that. And maybe they were, and then the people left. That maybe that actually is, totally what happened. But I don't know. It just feels like it just feels like Blizzard doesn't care. I mean, Blizzard literally kicked Heroes of the Storm to the curb after being like, "Oh, you guys are good." Just kidding. Get the fuck out. So I can't really like look into their timing very much.
Yeah. I have my own theories. I'm not sure if Nate hasn't said a word yet, so
so at least on the Blizzard part of this, if we're talking about Blizzard and StarCraft ending support, I mean, we've seen the writing on the wall somewhat for a while, right? Every time I've tried to have a conversation about, I think it was right after free to play, viewership was going up a bit more. People were talking about this, and I had conversations with people where I'm like, hey, we're doubling viewership on some of these tournaments compared to before. We're up, like 10, 20,000 extra people are here. Is there a way to try and take advantage of this, to try and get something to snowball, to try to get some momentum? And the types of responses that you would get would be that, well, we see an increase in activity, but we don't have things to show the nameless, faceless apparitions that tell us we're not making enough money, that this is going to make money for us in the future, right? So the people that have been working on this stuff have seen the good that's come from it. But StarCraft has kind of always put itself in a weird place because of how hardcore the scene is, right? But that's not what the majority of people don't ladder or do any of that stuff, right? And there were a few people that fought against that, namely guys like Mike Morheim, who is the reason we got war chests and all that. Everything I've heard about what he did to make any of those additions to the game were absolutely massive. But you see what happens with the company and cutting costs and the degrading quality of service and products that they're putting out, and obviously Mike leaving. Like, it was kind of inevitable at that point. There was no more Superman that could really hold things up. And I know that Tim Morton really tried to get as much in as he could, but at some point, when your role is to be the king of telling everybody that you have no budget, right? You're not, it's like you had a really cool job, but now it's like, oh, well, we don't mind keeping you on, but you don't get to do anything, right? So naturally, guys like that go away. And then there's nobody that, you have a bunch of people that were maybe hired in the last few years that don't have the same level of pull, right? Like Ryan's a great guy, but when he was in charge of StarCraft, do I think that he's able to argue with the people that he's talking to about trying to get budget approved? Probably not, right? He's not in that position like a guy like Tim might have been or Mike would have been. So it's unfortunate. I don't have too much else to say other than it does suck that we don't get anything else, at least with the EPT seasons for the next few years. If I could ask for anything, at least like the championship, right? Like if we have world champion, are we not going to have a portrait for that guy? You know, like, is that still too much to ask for? That's the kind of stuff that I think about with regards to that. Like, at least with the legacy of the game, like how is it going to, what's the send off going to look like when we reach the end of the tournaments? But I feel, you know, we're still pretty far away from that.
That's good. I agree with a lot of those points. I think that the important thing to bring up from the beginning is that StarCraft 2 was always headed towards not developing the game anymore. That was always going to be the goal, both on the multiplayer side. That's what David Kim said from the very beginning, is he wants to get the game to a place where it doesn't need to be tinkered with anymore. And the reason this has always been the case is because StarCraft 2 was always a boxed product. It was not a free-to-play game in essence that has all the microtransactions built in, right? Those were like Frankenstein editions of when Tim Morton came in. But that's trying to steer a large ship to do something that it was not initially designed to do. So the game was initially designed to sell copies, and it sold a lot of copies. Most people that play StarCraft, or like half of the people that play StarCraft, only play the campaign. And some of those people return, and there's some overlap with the co-op people. But there's not much overlap between, say, multiplayer and co-op people, right? So StarCraft then had 3 stages to profit. First one was Wings of Liberty, right? And that sells a bunch of money, so Blizzard makes a lot of money. And then there's a reason to reinvest some, especially because you have Heart of the Swarm coming up, and because you have Legacy of the Void coming up. But once Legacy of the Void is done selling its copies, then, I mean, that was always the plan, was to let the game, in terms of content, sail into obscurity, right? Like, there's no other way to look at it, because that's what the business model is, right? It was a boxed model. So again, what they tried to do was to adapt. So again, if we go back to Wings of Liberty, what happened was there was League of Legends and Dota 2 coming up, and they adopted new, better profiting models, right? That worked in the gaming industry, where the game can be self-sustainable through all these mechanisms. This is feedback that all of the StarCraft people were giving to the StarCraft people as well, and that League of Legends and Dota took to heart, and they made their games, be more adaptive in that sense. So I think that's really important to take into account. I think that there were second wins along the way. Like, for example, the DeepMind was a huge one, because, and that's why I was so personally so upset when DeepMind bounced. And people were like, arguing with me because DeepMind, obviously their initial statement was something like, oh, we want to learn from this shit, and we want to improve our AI and whatever the fuck. But really, the precedent that was set by DeepMind in chess and Go was to give the game a huge worldwide exposure, right? If StarCraft got that same type of eyes on it, say if Serral was ever to play a huge show match against the DeepMind AI when they're finished and they're confident that, if StarCraft had been the next place where AI versus human is like the official, match to see who rules, then that would have been hype as fuck. And I think that that's what extended basically the duration of Legacy of the Void to a good degree, is because DeepMind came in. And because, if you're Blizzard, you care a fuckload about those eyes and about that exposure in any one of your games, or as a company in general, right? So when DeepMind bounced, I was really disappointed. Again, even though their initial stance was so reductive, that's, that at the start, everyone's always going to say, we're just aiming to learn. And then, if they bounce, they say, oh, we learned. That was our goal. But really, the precedent that they had set was something else. It was to have that big moment that StarCraft didn't get. So fuck Google as well. But yeah, I think when they left, then things kind of just started, going downwards from there, because there's no reason to keep producing content, because other ventures, and people might think, oh, but Warchest do sell a certain amount, and they sure do. But obviously, these are like Blizzard paid people, right? Like with their benefits and working at an office that also costs money in Irvine. It's very fucking expensive, right? To keep the lights on and keep producing content when you can reallocate the same artists to say work on World of Warcraft or Overwatch and probably make more profit, not because those games are better, but because those games actually have built-in systems from the beginning that were intended to profit from the long-term audience, right? Like loot boxes, or in the case of World of Warcraft, the subscription system and whatever the fuck you can buy in it. So
yeah. Another thing with that too is that, to the best of my knowledge, Blizzard was expecting something to come of all of that DeepMind stuff that they could at least leverage for publicity for themselves using StarCraft, and they invested into. There were things that they built in the engine and cleaned up inside the game that never really affected any normal use of it, but was like kind of cool stuff. Like they cleaned out a lot of old stuff that wasn't compatible with the DeepMind stuff that they were running. Yeah. They built an almost functioning Linux client for the game because that's what they were running it on. And like if something like that had moved even a little bit more too, like I'm with you on the fuck Google sentiment with that. If things had moved a little bit more with that, we could have gotten like some kind of cool stuff, because the potential to be a part of something like that was actually worth investing in for Blizzard. So that's one of those things that were just experimenting like, having 2 years.
They were experimenting with shit like having built-in basically like build order guides inside the game and shit like that. Mm-hmm. Like they were doing a lot of shit internally that could have, but all as a product of trying to extract that information and to work with Google as well and to make it easier for them. Yeah. And obviously, like internally, Blizzard can't say we're disappointed at Google or anything like that. And, it's like the expectation was set. And I think a lot of people like that I know personally in the teams were very disappointed with the way that it went. But from the perspective of Google, they always covered themselves because they always said, well, we're trying to learn, not we're trying to be the best or beat the best player in the world, right?
Yeah. I'm glad it's out there. I never knew how to touch the subject because I don't remember what I signed or didn't sign, or what I actually knew or didn't know. But I was like, every time someone's like,
position a lot, I understand.
Long story short,
people were being like, "Wasn't Alpha Star so cool?" And I'm like, I'm a person who was glad that other people found it exciting, right? Like anyone who was interested in it, if it made them more excited about StarCraft, fantastic. It wasn't really my bag. But I remember being like, just like, oh, I guess it's kind of cool. And then the first showing was when they made TLO play Protoss, and all the journalism that followed it was all like, beats pro gamer. And I was like, that's not really accurate. That's clearly, they're sensationalizing the headline.
They catfished and sensationalized mega hard.
And
it was so carefully tuned to make it seem like they would give us a payoff for participating, and they just milked the shit out of it for their papers, having people play with like awful circumstances against this AI without their normal setups and other races and shit.
I remember there being like talk of like an actual tournament and like a number attached to it, but I don't want to say it because I don't remember it. And basically, like, like as you said, like Blizzard can't be like, yeah, those guys really, they fucking sucked. Like they're not going to say that. But I remember everyone I talked to was kind of being like, yeah, so we kind of wanted more from that. I felt like I'd been used. I felt like StarCraft was used. Okay, they experimented on us, and then they just left us. And everyone's supposed to be like, well, we're glad that they used us. That was really nice of them. Thank you very much. And now I'm just so glad that apparently it is okay for me to say fuck those guys. I really didn't like their approach at all.
I think personally that everything I said is you can get at from an outsider's perspective. It's just putting everything together. Obviously, I have friends at Blizzard, and like I know how they feel, but that's the only comment that I've done really of anything that has to do with internal policy or anything like that, right? Like from outside, you can see that Google came in, you can see everything that they did in chess and in Go, and and you can see that they left early, and you can see, like it's,
can see what they did do with us that they did with everybody else.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
For a lot of people
that's
who
what the
were
president has said.
Interested in this, they had no idea that there was actually those I guess expectations, which is like a weird word, right? Because for some people, they're like, oh, wouldn't it have been great if they had done that? Shucks. And then there's, well, they were pretty much promising without actually signing a contract, and then said they just fucking bounced. That sucks. Like that is the two ways that like, expectations can work. And for a lot of the community, whenever I talk about it and try and tiptoe around this, everyone would be like, shucks. And I'd be like, internally, fuck those guys, I hate them. And then on stream, I'd just be like, yeah, it's kind of sad. I wish they did more. But Anyways, totally off topic because you're right to bring it up as far as something that revitalized StarCraft, but yeah,
it got them to put a lot of money into developing stuff that no player will ever see.
Yep, that is also true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we knew that Tim had left a while ago. That esports was being sent to ESL, right? Which I think is great for esports. Because I think ESL, knows how to run tournaments, obviously. But all in all, you could always see that that they were kind of, stepping away from StarCraft, which is why I never got excited for, say, StarCraft 3 in the announcement. Like, that's not a hope that I think anyone should hold, because, again, if you look at it from the outside and you see the people at Frost Giant and you see the people that have already left that team and are working elsewhere, then you find that there's not very many people left working StarCraft, right? Like StarCraft has been in classic games for many years. I think that they could have even done without the announcement, and it would have been better for us, because I felt like we were already where they were announcing we were, right? Like, I don't think that anyone had expectations to where they would have been really sad, or maybe there's some co-op, like hardcore co-op people. But for the most part, it was always a question, like, is there going to be an X Commander? Right? We were already there where we didn't know, and if it didn't happen, we wouldn't have gone crazy over it or thought that it was unexpected. So the reason for the announcement in itself, like, when I read the announcement, I was so angry, because I was like, why the fuck are you even saying this at all? Because all that does is pronounce the game dead, basically, so that everyone on Twitter can be like, oh, rip StarCraft, it was so fun. Right, and then we get the echo chambers of that game again, and that's just fucking awful. So why would they do that? Because we were already there and we were fine. We didn't feel like we were fucked.
That's an interesting take, actually. If I could jump in for 1 second, like, maybe there was pressure because of Dreamhaven, and they obviously know that Frost Giant is going to announce. So maybe they're like, well, they're going to notice everyone who's ever worked on StarCraft 2 is no longer here, basically.
Exactly.
So that could have propelled it, actually.
Yep, right? That's how they get ahead of the announcement, because there's announcements coming of what's actually been going on, which is, that's exactly what happened.
You guys don't think that, for instance, like, couldn't it have been the other way around, though? Couldn't Dreamhaven have planned this out in anticipation of something like this? Well, they're announced, not Dreamhaven, sorry, Frost Giant. Frost Giant announced 4 or 5 days after this announcement.
Yep.
Is that not looking like it's the opposite? That they knew that Blizzard was going to say something, and then they were like, "We got to get on it."
I think it could have gone either way.
Yeah, there's certainly a little bit of timing there that they can capitalize on, but it is more urgent for Blizzard to know, and they are obviously not living on bad terms or anything like that, right? Like, they are professional, I'm sure, and they are aware of each other's timelines in that sense. I don't think there's like much discord or. Because again, I don't even know that Blizzard is looking to compete in any way with Frost Giant, right? I really doubt they're making an RTS.
Yeah,
so
there's not much to look into as far as the announcement timings go.
There is a secret option C, and it's that there's nobody left there who's in touch with the StarCraft community, so they didn't even realize that it would sound bad.
Well, I think if Frost Giant announced, and they announced, hey, look, it's Tim Morton, Ryan Shatter, and Kevin Dong, and like all of the StarCraft people, that like all of the leads that we know were the leads in on StarCraft, and they announced they're somewhere else, and Blizzard didn't get ahead of that. That's terrible PR for Blizzard, right? Like, Blizzard has to say, hey, by the way, this is happening, because otherwise, if someone else announces it for them, people kind of freak out and they're like, Blizzard, what the fuck? You're a multi-million-dollar company and you're not letting your people know what's going on or something.
You think it really would have been that bad if they had just not announced it?
For Blizzard, yes. For StarCraft, it would have been better if they didn't announce it.
If Blizzard didn't announce it, then wouldn't Frost Giant Studios just come out and say it anyways, and people would be like, what's going on?
Yeah, people would figure it out
well,
anyway.
People would certainly... I actually didn't even realize the extent to the amount of people that went to Frost Giant, honestly. Like, when I saw that... I knew about Tim first, and then I saw like Ryan Shooter and Kevin Dong going. I'm like, oh my god, like they're just gutting the whole team. It's crazy. So if they announced and Blizzard hadn't announced, definitely we'd be like, wait, who's on the StarCraft team? Like, there's still, I can probably name a couple people, but not many anymore.
Yeah,
definitely not many.
Yeah, and I mean, they dismantled esports like 2 or 3 months ago as well, right? Basically, like, or not that long ago anyway. So yeah, you could see that there's basically all the leads that we have been used to working with would be gone. Yeah.
I do wonder. I guess we'll never know. I mean, if we could ask Frost Giant directly, that would be probably the easiest way. Because if they did know, then
I don't think we'd be at liberty to talk about that if they told us.
yeah, of course, yeah, exactly.
Probably.
But
if they were willing to tell us.
yeah, I do agree though on the general concept. That was my first tweet. Was that the worst thing about this was the announcement.
Mhm.
It really is quite bizarre actually, and like heart wrenching that 10 months ago. So, it's October. It's mid-October. 10 months ago, the StarCraft 2 community was at its most optimistic. Like anything was in our grasp, and it wasn't necessarily because of war chests and co-op commanders. It was because of a 3-year deal. 3 years. It's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
No one expected that. That was out of the blue. Honestly, didn't make much sense. But we'll take it. And then 10 months later, it's like, well, we're dead, guys. And it's like, oh, but 2 more years. Like, come on. Can't you just wait for the funeral for like 2 more years? And they're like, nope. No co-op commander next year. I'm done. Some guy, overreactions abound on Twitter, was like, that's it. I guess I'll watch GSL and then I'm done for this year. No more StarCraft. And I'm like, well, 2 more years. And he was like, oh yeah, forgot about that. And I feel like that was just the worst thing about it. Yeah, and it still is.
It's a Husky thing. It's a Husky thing, right? I mean, how many people still hope? I mean, I guess they don't know anymore. Like, we're praying he would come back because he never officially said goodbye, right? I mean, if you can keep that many people hanging on a thread, desperate for your attention, Blizzard could have done the same thing, and it would have kept people being like, well, they said that they're slowing development. But like, to the fact that they dropped the guillotine on it and made sure to mention all of the individual things they wouldn't be doing is like, that is the most bizarre part of it. There's a difference between, hey guys, the game's been out for 10 years. We just want you to know we're going to be slowing down development as we kind of keep this game in maintenance mode. We're not going to promise any content for the foreseeable future, right? Like, that's a super easy vanilla thing to say that keeps, if you ever, for whatever reason, want to do something, you can, but it also keeps your players like kind of blissfully ignorant, like, of the possibility that you might get something again. Like, oh, well, you know what? Maybe they'll only drop like half a war chest next year, right? But they're like, no war chests, like no more purchasable content, period. Also, no more big revamp patches. If there's a super huge problem with the game, we will make a minor fix. But to go to the length to let you know that each and every single part of the game is completely done was the part where I was like, the person who wrote this clearly does not understand what they're saying.
It is weird because if they had done the more vague thing, I feel like you'd have a lot of people still willing to buy war chests, which honestly right now, like and I'm not saying these guys are complainers or wrong, but there are people who are like, well, I guess I just don't buy anything from Blizzard anymore. And it's like, fair, people are already considering boycotting Blizzard. People were already like, I'll just buy it because I want to support the esport. And now they're like, well, there's no reason to. And of course you can buy it if you want. You can buy a skin, like no one's judging. But I do think that if they had just been like, we don't know, guys, who knows about the future? People would be like, oh, okay, well, I still want to support my esports. So like, I'm going to click that button. So as far as for them getting as much money as possible from what is already in the game that is still, sellable, I do feel like that would have been the better call than saying, very veiled, like, we're done with you forever. Goodbye.
You guys are talking a lot about how the announcement was bad, and definitely it sounds that way, but it feels like they're trying to almost tease something here. They say the good news is this change will free us up to think about what's next, not just with regard to StarCraft 2, but for the StarCraft universe as a whole. Do you think this is an empty, shallow sentence?
That's a Husky. That's right. That's what that is.
Yes.
Right there. Yes.
That's Artosis. That is the part of my video where I stopped doing the shot and I took the bottle. I was like, of course they do, of course. Right after how long ago was it that it was revealed that they axed the StarCraft first-person shooter? That was this year, wasn't it? And then how much have we talked about, and Tasteless's video talked about how people wanted StarCraft 3 and they were told directly, no, it's not happening. Like, in what have they done behind the scenes, that we would know, or ahead of the scenes that the community would know, that would say that they actually are interested and doing anything more with StarCraft? I think we're clearly going to keep the IP. Maybe one day down the line, we'll do a StarCraft mobile game. That's what that says to me. They just want to make sure that it's their IP.
I think we're gonna get a StarCraft mobile game. I really do. I don't think
Yeah,
it'll be
I
called
think it'll be
StarCraft
announced
3, but I think
reasonably.
we're gonna get some sort of Clash of Clans wannabe StarCraft game on the cell phone. I bet you.
Kind of play
I'm
that.
just surprised they haven't
Yeah.
announced it already, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think all you gotta do is like if you read the words. Oh, I'm so sorry, Ruff. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's I was thinking about it because if you look at, for example, Overwatch, they announced something called like Overwatch 2. What's your opinion about that? Isn't it just basically Overwatch with extra stuff in it that they're profiting from?
So it's what they promised would eventually come for Overwatch, but the maybe confirmed rumor, I talk with people, but not really memorize stuff, is that their system literally could not handle like a campaign for what they made for Overwatch 1. So they had to make a new one for Overwatch 2. That's the last thing I kind of heard.
I was thinking, because they took that route, what if they took that same exact route for StarCraft 2? Instead of it being what it is with the multiplayer, what if we actually had like different units for the multiplayer and it was a completely different game with the same models? Do you think that that would actually be something that Blizzard could potentially profit from to keep the community?
That was Legacy of the Void, wasn't it?
Well, not
if
just Legacy of the Void. I'm not talking about like adding stuff. I get a bunch of stuff on stream. I see it everywhere too. Like, we want Goliaths in multiplayer. We want this in multiplayer. And what if they just called it something else, like StarCraft 2.1 or StarCraft 2A or even StarCraft 3 for that matter, in that kind of retrospect?
They kind of tried a rebranding like that when the game went free to play and stuff. They were trying to like almost make it feel like that's what was going on.
They might have.
Yeah,
They almost changed the name of it too when they went free to play. That was on the table as well.
They were thinking about it.
Yeah.
More than that, like I think that's exactly what they did for Legacy of the Void. They tried to brand the game like Legacy of the Void is not the third expansion. At the end, they decided instead of it being the third expansion, it was a standalone game, and that's how they marketed it and that's how they sold it. But it was super late, so the perception from everyone, myself included, is that's the expansion. It was it was one of the three expansions, and even in all of the art, there's Raynor, Kerrigan, and whoever the fuck, Zeratul, is it? I don't know.
Zeratul, Artanis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my point being, in the minds of everyone, there's the three expansions, but from Blizzard's perspective, I think that this is maybe even part of why they're hesitant to continue on with RTS, is because from their perspective, they might see Legacy of the Void as a standalone RTS. Like basically what you're saying, basically a StarCraft 3 that didn't, sell more than Wings of Liberty. Like it sold like an expansion because that's how people thought about it.
Well, it definitely it was an expansion because all the fucking player base of both the other games goes away completely. Yeah. Right? There's probably two sad suckers playing Wings of Liberty ladder still, and that's it.
Well, they actually did gut that as well. That is gone. They got rid of
it's straight up gone.
Yeah. And the biggest thing in regards to that with like, oh, can we try to rebrand? Can we try to relaunch? It comes back to one of the core problems, even with the war chests, which is that, we have like numbers have come out, right? I'm just going to reference Total Biscuit's tweet because it's the safest thing for me to do. But he publicly talked about how when they talked about the player base numbers, they were at 1.5 million people and it wasn't going below that number. We know based on the amount of people with way too much time on their hands, roughly how many folks play ladder every season. It is insignificant compared to the number of people who play other modes in StarCraft. And they did not actually find as much of a way to get recurring revenue from those people. The war chest mostly targeted the multiplayer base, which was very small relative to the rest of the player base. It didn't have stuff like co-op content. In order to do that, it would have become a much larger investment, a huge endeavor. And that's what like the biggest challenge with StarCraft is if you want to make that big jump to change what the focus of the game is going to be about, and you want to actually target all the people that like StarCraft in general, if you want to target 1.5 million people instead of 100,000 people, you are going to have to go back to the drawing board on a lot of the ways that the game works mechanically, the way that the game works as far as the interface, putting stuff that's less stressful up front. And I've already seen enough comments, even just the chat alone, people talking about future RTS stuff. People don't want change, especially the StarCraft community. So to make that leap I know a lot of people want more stuff, but is never going to happen without it taking a complete revamp in the approach to it. Like if you want to have that successful live service game, they're not leaning on you, guy who plays 100 ladder games. You're going to play those 100 ladder games a week no matter what, because you're crazy. They're going to try to get the co-op guy to buy a $10 a month war chest or a $10 a season war chest, because the co-op guy plays a couple of co-op. He's got his guys leveled up, but he's not grinding crazy amounts of games. But there's a million more of him than there are of you, guy who will log on and play for no reason without any reason to, you don't need that motivation. But they still targeted those people with like the content of war chests, the content of tournaments. How often do we ever actually have anything that was like designed to be fun or engaging mixed in? It was extremely rare. So that philosophy shift is something that they're also scared to do, because they know the backlash to being like, hey guys, we care about the other million people who play this game. The backlash from the loud people is going to be insane.
Yeah, not only that, but like what I mentioned earlier, it's a large ship to try and steer, right? It's not a game that's designed with elements of like how do we profit from all the microtransactions in mind. The microtransactions and everything else was added later onto an already working system.
Yeah.
So it's much more difficult to implement that. Like if you're a new game, like I imagine for example for Frost Giant, they're gonna have to, if they're looking to do, I think Tim Morton did an interview where he talked about like doing the EA, importing the EA system. And I mean, he did a lot of the microtransaction stuff for Legacy of the Void as well, and a lot of the implementation that we actually got for StarCraft 2. So I think it's more likely that if they take a free-to-play approach or like one of those newer business models, that they will work on a game from the beginning that works with those, rather than try to adapt them in a clunky way, right? So I think that's huge as well.
It's an interesting question, though, is, I mean, there's so many things that StarCraft could have done if it had known that it was what the way that, the scene is going to look in 10 years, absolutely, and that Frost Giants are going to be very aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why hasn't it already happened? I mean, if RTS could actually be so monetized and so popular, I mean, there's been 10 years of other people to try and capitalize on where Blizzard fell in that genre. And I don't think anyone's tried. So we're back to the old question.
From my perspective, it's because all those games sucked, right? And because you're competing with StarCraft 2 and like Warcraft 3, I guess, and StarCraft 1, but really like the engine for StarCraft 2 is very difficult to compete with. Like to build an engine like StarCraft 2, yeah.
I mean, absolutely. Like, but there's a time where RTS was rather popular. All different types of RTS was popular. But I'm thinking of like the ones that came out that even did okay as far as just like sales, right? And I can't think of any right now, but
well, you got to think of some, otherwise
because I don't play any. But like
RTS other than SC2.
But like for instance, like Grey Goo. Did it do anything to monetize RTS? But did it do anything though? Did it come into the market saying we know what to fix? Did their Billions do that? No, they probably couldn't afford to because they didn't have a lot of cash. But does Age of Empires 4 promise anything about this monetization that we're talking about?
That'd be cool.
Like
that'll be interesting, actually. Maybe I don't know.
I think AOE 4 would be in a position to do it. I think they're the first big studio that are like coming up with
that. Should be the next big RTS to be released.
That's the first one that I'm excited about since StarCraft 2 came out. Right, like every other RTS I checked out and I'm excited about it.
But my point is, like, no one seems to have. Unfortunately, no one. It doesn't seem, anyways, because there's probably like someone who's like, I know this one game. It doesn't seem like any RTS has come out that didn't do that well with sales, and we kind of forget it, but actually had this amazing marketing, that had this amazing microtransactions, right? Like, it doesn't seem like anything for that has been built for Frost Giant to go, okay, good game StarCraft plus this beautiful mixture of what made RTS actually, something that people would buy more shit from. And it's just like fucking merge them together, right? It seems like nothing exists that says this is how you make an RTS with microtransactions and that can sustain itself.
Well, I think you're definitely right about that. Like there's not a model, I think, for RTS, because when you think about the way RTS is played, look at a MOBA, right? Like you can give people a certain amount of characters that they can play, and you can play the full game, right? As long as you have like a character of each, a healer and a fucking jungler or whatever the fuck we call these stupid magic casting stupid game. But you can get people to buy, first off, skins for their favorite ones, but then also new ones that come out. You can't do that with RTS. You can't have someone buy a new unit. You can't, because it breaks the game instantly.
Mm.
Because then it becomes play to win. Like you have to have everyone has to have the playable version at the base.
At the same time, Dan, as I know that this is something that no fan of StarCraft really wants to consider, but that is actually one of the few somewhat reasonable ways to go forward. Having some level of interchangeability of what you have is definitely one way to make money. All the arguments about, oh, this guy's Hellions and this guy's Vultures, it's the same thing with any of these other games. People come in with a million different fucking loadouts. Oh, this gun's broken. Well, everyone doesn't uninstall the game when that happens. They try to make a hot fix. This is how every other game happens. There's hundreds of characters in League. No matter
You're
how
wrestling
broken,
my jimmies, Nate.
I'm just saying.
CSGO has a lot of alternate guns.
Look, I'm telling you, you could either try to put 40 races, which would never happen, or you can have unit loadouts, interchangeable types of upgrades. You find a way. You get people who are creative, people who are passionate about making this work. Build systems where you can have ways of limiting what you're doing, like it's a deck builder or like it's a MOBA.
Mhm.
I know now nobody wants to hear that, but
Nobody does.
I don't want to hear it, Nate.
if you want to see RTS exist in a future where these are the types of games that are popular, you're not going to be able to just re-release a game like StarCraft 2, making marginal improvements and expect it to be popular, because StarCraft 2 wasn't popular multiplayer wise in that same way as these other games. That's what everybody's been saying the last 10 years. And if you're not willing to evolve or try to change or try to grow, then you might as well just sit and play on the game until Blizzard, 40 years if they turn the servers off. Why do you care about a StarCraft 3 if change is the last thing you ever want to see? You have to grow and evolve with the market, with the environment. Not everyone's going to do it right either.
Imagine if the multiplayer was like the campaign.
Bang Nate, they're saying in chat, but I'm with you, Nate.
I don't give a fuck, man. I don't give a fuck. A lot of live service games do it fantastically.
Let's try to get outside. What is it? Okay, Ruff, what do you think about Nate's idea there?
I actually think it's pretty interesting, because let's assume, okay, you have your base core of units and you play your multiplayer. Let's say you start the game, the loading screen comes up. Your opponent decided instead of Hellions, he has Vultures.
Maybe you get
Instead of
balanced
a
too.
Thor, he has a Goliath. And you have this and that. Immediately, you've got to think, okay, I got to figure out, I'm fighting versus this. I have to evolve my strategies into something else. It's almost like incorporating your campaign selection into the multiplayer. And it sounds really cool, actually. But the thing is that it's so complex. How do you even get close to balancing that? But it sounds like a really cool idea, though.
I mean, a couple of things, right? Like, how do you balance it? Where do you stop? Is this going to be the only microtransactions? You have like 20 different versions of
there could be
and
picks and bans for balance.
There's another solution people don't notice either, though. Most StarCraft balance changes are grossly outside any scientific measurable way of looking at data. First of all, making more than a 5% change means that you have no idea if what you're doing is actually a small. If you're like, oh, we're going to make a small change. When you raise a unit's damage by 2 or its health by 15, you're working with rather large percentages. That a lot of time with StarCraft, they always talk about how they don't want things to be ugly. We don't want to have resources that aren't divisible by 5 or whatever on this stuff. Yeah. If you're willing to be flexible, and I actually agree with that philosophy, but you have to be flexible about getting around that in a way that you can make a 5% change, because that's what the other games do. Like when a character is overpowered in League, they don't immediately do like, oh, it's going to take 30% off. Like everything I see in other games patch notes is we're going to take damage down by 1. We're going to reduce the turn radius, the turn speed of this unit by 0.1, by 0.5%, by 0.5%. And when you do that, if you have a lot of variables, as long as you're making small enough changes that you're like, this is just meant to be a tiny push. Whereas in StarCraft, we go from like, oh, we've decided to just cut this ability's damage in half or double its cooldown, right? And you're like, that's a fucking 100 or a 50% change. How on earth could you possibly be like, within a span of a month or a week saying, oh yeah, we totally have the data to know that we can just double this stat and it's not going to have a massive impact. Mm-hmm. That's how you survive with having more variables. You don't double a unit's movement speed or raise it by 15%. You raise it by like 2 or 3%. We already have ugly numbers in move speed. They could have easily done that instead of saying, well, everything's just going to get plus 25% because it looks nice to write 25% in a patch note. Like,
So one thing is that I do think that they were awfully sometimes short-sighted. It might not be the right word, but like turn rate was like, I don't remember ever turn rate really being changed in StarCraft. I do think that they had many avenues to go to buff and nerf StarCraft, and they always went movement speed for like 90% of their shit. And that was annoying. I absolutely agree with that. But my point that I was going to make before that third point was that the really nice thing about StarCraft, though, that and this is the benefit of not having all of these variables, is that you can go back to StarCraft for 10 years and still have roughly the same game. Everything is divisible by 5. You still have Vespene and minerals. You still have the same units in the race, except that, okay, you haven't been around. There's 3 new units per, but that's every 5 years or whatever, right? Like, I personally get turned off from going back to League of Legends or any other game, basically, that's ever existed, because there is so much to learn if I've been gone for 6 months. If I've been gone for 6 months from StarCraft, there's new metas. There might be some changes, but if I'm Platinum League and I'm playing StarCraft as Platinum League, basically throughout the last 10 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's what I really like about StarCraft. So I don't really think that we have to make it so complicated. The one thing that has actually been very good about StarCraft and Blizzard's philosophy is to keep things simple, right? People always think that StarCraft is this amazingly complex game because in many ways it is, but in many other ways it's not. You know, everything kind of works like we think it's going to work, which is one of the best features of it, right? And that's why it's been so hesitant to put in new abilities that suddenly have an aura. You know, could they have put an aura into StarCraft and been like, the mothership now has an aura? Yeah, they could have. But it also just entirely breaks their game philosophy and the way that StarCraft is streamlined, right?
Kind of.
that's still related to the content release schedule, though. If you're releasing content on a more consistent basis, almost every single modern game that's popular right now has proved that your player base does not just fall off. Like, there are still a shit ton, insane number of people playing Fortnite, PUBG, all of these games because they put out stuff at a pace that people feel motivated to want to play. You're not wrong in that. A benefit of StarCraft is you could take a 6-month break and not as much changes as other games. But like, if you're building your strategy around people that you expect to take 6-month breaks, like, I don't really know what the focus was in the first place.
Yeah.
But I feel like there should be some flexibility to allow both, right? So I posed the question of what can you do to monetize an RTS? And I had my own answers, but let everyone talk us first, right? And I think Frost Giant has actually even already kind of, suggested that they are thinking the same way that I was thinking, which is that you can have 1v1 and then you can do co-op. And imagine what they could have done with co-op if it was there from the start. Imagine them using co-op to then have a jumping board to then do basically an ARAM, right? Something that is just like, fuck all, it's StarCraft, but it ain't StarCraft, They're basically going to put Direct Strike into StarCraft and call it and say it was their idea. That would be fucking fantastic. And they could do whatever they want with those modes. They could do whatever they want. They could put in skins that don't make any sense. And finally some fun skins too, and not just like a different color. But they could just save 1v1 as 1v1. Clearly there is somewhat of a market for what we are interested in. And to basically say, no, we have to go entirely the League of Legends path would be a travesty. I feel like you would have me in Artosis at the very least not playing video games anymore. There's clearly people like us, and I think you can appeal to both without just being like, nope, the core game has to explode, has to be changed completely. And I think they've already mentioned some things like that.
Yeah,
and
I agree. Go on.
I was going to say I agree. I've done a rant, Cats. You're good.
Okay, I was going to say I agree with both. I agree with both of you. There is definitely the you and Artosis type of people, and I talked to a lot of engineers, for example, that stopped playing StarCraft after Wings of Liberty because when the game got changed in Wings of Liberty, they thought, well, that's too much. That's too much change. I don't like change, and that's why Artosis is playing Brood War still, right? Like, it's like, like that's there are those people for sure, but those people are not gonna make money for the game, and they're not gonna make the game sustainable because you don't need to sell them anything. It's like what Nate was saying. They're gonna be playing the game regardless, right? So if we don't want to reach a point like we're reaching now, you need to implement some semblance of like active change from which they can profit. And I think, you could put it in co-op because that's the game that you don't like, but why not put it in 1v1? Because
I like co-op fine. I play co-op all the time. But like, for instance, in your example, instead of that engineer coming back after 5 years and being like, oh, 1v1, that's just way too difficult. I don't want to relearn this. They go, oh, StarCraft. I love StarCraft. Oh, there's like an ARAM version? All right, yeah, I guess I'll pick that up.
What's ARAM? What's ARAM?
all
Okay.
random, all middle. It's a League of Legends thing.
So you
It just-
pick, you get a random champion. There's only one lane.
Oh,
it's completely different from the rest of League of Legends, except that it has the same heroes and the same.
it's like easier League of Legends.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean anything. It's like playing a mono battle in StarCraft. It's like, yes, this is StarCraft, but it's not really.
Nice.
But it's on the same.
I totally know
field.
what a mono battle is. He says he just nods a lot.
I do know that one.
The way to enter that mode is on the same page as playing ranked in League of Legends, and that's my analogy for this, because I've been thinking about how I wanted to try and say this is, imagine that you want to go to a bar and you want to go to a place where if you want to get a strong drink, you can. If you want something that's not super crazy, you can do that too, right? But you can't just open an establishment and be like, guys, we only serve nuclear hot wings. You have to sign a waiver for. That's the customer we want. We only want the most hardcore chicken wing fanatics. If you want mild, we're going to tell you to get the fuck out, you casual. We're going to tell you to get lost, right? So that's what StarCraft is. StarCraft 2 and StarCraft, like Brood War especially, is a bar that's run by some old guy that's like, we have 2 things on our menu. If you don't want them, get the fuck out, right? But you want to make money. You want to be able to pay your bills. You want to be able to pay rent, right? You're going to quadruple. You're going to 50 times your income if you add mild wings and a regular shitty Bud Light to that menu. Because then the guy who just wants to stop in for wings and a beer is going to stop in and be able to get that. So how do you find a way to provide that environment for StarCraft? How do you provide an environment where somebody who doesn't want to only eat nuclear hot wings can go to this place, not get shit on by the people who are eating those, and still have a good time, right?
Yeah.
That's the environment that that StarCraft needs. And Jess, you brought up one of my favorite examples. ARAM is a super casual thing that takes out a ton of the stress of playing League of Legends, except one of the big differences is whenever I'm looking at anything League related, I don't see everybody shit on people who like playing ARAMs. I don't know anybody who doesn't play a couple of ARAMs every now and again, right? But you'll find tons of people who are proud to be ignorant of everything in SC2 outside of the versus mode, which you're allowed to be in that perspective, but the amount of people that you can drive away by being so elitist about something while also depending on them is just dumb, right? If there's 300,000 people, this is my lowball estimate. If there's 300,000 people who've been playing co-op a month for the last 5 years since it was added, if there's 300,000 people and a tournament gets 30,000 viewers, who do you think is more likely to be able to convert to watching the tournament? Someone who plays co-op and gets disrespected constantly by everyone, or a guy who watches some other game and doesn't give a shit about StarCraft, right? Like there are opportunities here to engage with these other people within our own space that get laughed at, or just like you get laughed out of the room for bringing it up. And that's a massive, massive, massive problem that StarCraft has always had that we weren't able to get over. The fact that co-op brought so many people in, despite the fact that that was the way that things were before, the elitism, I mean, is just amazing to me.
I'm not going to disagree that StarCraft is elitist, but I am curious that you think that it's elitist in that way, because I came in from playing like ladder, and most of the people that I talk to who played Brood War talk about comp stomps. And, any casual, like Tinder or something talks about co-op. Like I haven't seen much elitism when someone comes into a stream and says, you want to play co-op? I don't see them, most streamers being like, what the fuck is that? The fuck is that? Get away from me. They're like, oh, I'm not, I'm really interested in it, or they say, hell yeah, let's do it. Right. So I'm interested. Like, I agree overall elitism in StarCraft is a problem. And I think we're ultimately in agreement, by the way, in that we basically I think that there's a world where both things can happen in the same game. You're talking about making the whole system implode and like starting over and doing really wacky shit, which I'm totally on board for. And I'm on board having those 30,000 people who watch 1v1 still have an option to have, to watch that 1v1. Right. I just think that like in the example that we're talking about, that engineer, he comes in to play ARAM with his friends, inadvertently clicks the ladder button, eventually because he's like, man, I really miss this feeling. Comes back into StarCraft 1v1 and then goes back into the esport as well. Like, absolutely, I want the casuals to be sucked in and then eventually grow what could be a minor part, but still has room to grow competitive part. I think we're all in agreement here, unless I'm mistaken.
No, I think everyone's in agreement. I agree. It's just I think it's just a how much of it we want and where we want it that we're in disagreement, basically, right? Like
I don't want it in the main mode. Like, for instance, people bring up like a Immortal, which is apparently more of like a 2v2 focus, although they said they want 1v1 to be possible.
Mm-hmm.
Or in general, they're like, what if we had an RTS that is mostly a team game? And I'm just like, I'm going to be a big old baby if that's what ends up happening with Frost Giant. I don't want a team game. There are so many team games available, and only 2 1v1. Okay, 3 if you count Warcraft. And then, fighting. But anyways.
Yeah, I don't think that the difficulty or the complexity or the skill sets for 1v1 need to be touched. And I don't think that adding like stuff that to sell and profit, or like the idea that Nate was presenting that Ref liked on, like, say, selling different units, I don't think that like stuff like that is like out of complete, I don't think that that would break balance. And I agree with Nate in that a lot of balancing around StarCraft 2 and around most games is mostly perceptual, right? Because you never can know, for example, where the actual best player is. Like, what if the best player in the world actually plays obviously the best player in the world, or the most skillful player in the world, however you want to conceptualize of it, would be in one of the 3 races. And you can never balance around that, right? And there's not enough data, because you would also not know what data sets to look at. Because, do you look at just pro games? Do you look at just the top 10% of pro games? Do you look at all of it? Do you to balance? It's all very subjective, and it's all like, and it's never like, we've never had it's very difficult to fuck up, because it's such a massive ship again, right? So if you make a change, you'd have to be very stupid to make a change that changes balance in a way where it's like more than 5% difference from what it was before the change came in, right? Like, it's just, it would just be very difficult to fuck it up that badly. You would just, So yeah, I think that's not an issue, like to blend in elements that would allow the game to, like, for example, I brought up, and many people have brought up, it's a big discussion on the Are Frost Giant, whether there should be heroes or not. I'm very much for heroes, because I think heroes will generate a lot of revenue. You see, I think heroes, like, you can customize and personalize heroes, and you can like buy different skins and you can have them displayed, whereas your units in StarCraft can't, right? Like, I think that it would be smart of them to make heroes so that they can make a game that is sustaining over time, for instance. But people don't like hearing that in StarCraft 2, because
what is the difference? What is the difference between being able to pay for a hero that has a variety of different things, that's going to have, let's assume, 3 abilities, and you put 50 heroes that you could have for your orcs or your space elves, whatever garbage? What is the difference between that and being like, hey guys, we're releasing the legacy pack. That's a Terran legacy pack for $10. You can unlock the vulture instead of the Hellion, and then you add a bunch of shit. You add a bunch of skins for that people can buy and pay for. What is the, like? You're doing the same thing. You're still doing something that's going to change things in a huge amount of ways, right? Like, you can still have those options in different ways.
Yeah. I'm not saying they need to have heroes. I'm saying like heroes are monetizable.
I do think heroes are more monetizable than what Nate suggested.
Just you're probably right.
Yeah, I think
you're
they're
probably
more
right with the hero
personalizable,
thing
and they show up in the big screen.
Yeah,
maybe
Joan of Arc, man. Give me Joan of Arc, man. She's broken in AOE Gold.
Sorry, Ruff, you saying something?
I was saying that if you have heroes, maybe they can just have different modes. Maybe there is a competitive mode with heroes, which might, I'm not sure what game it is. Is it Warcraft 3 that has heroes in it? Yeah. And then there's another mode that does.
Artosis. What are you laughing at?
Why not?
How do you not know Warcraft 3, man?
The last Warcraft I played was Warcraft 2.
Damn. You should try Warcraft 3, actually. You should give it a try. That'd be a fun thing on your stream. But I don't think you want to fracture the player base when you get into things like 1v1 mode or co-op mode. Like, have some different modes, but you got to be careful to not fracture things, right? You don't want, if you get a big divide and some people like heroes and some people don't. Imagine if Warcraft 3 and StarCraft 2 were actually the same game, but we now have split communities. You know how much stronger everything would be if all that was one community? Holy crap. We'd have so many more people. We'd have so many more viewers. We'd have so many, the ladder would be more competitive. The players would be better, all those things. So I feel like splitting things off or having too many modes would be painful for an RTS game at this point.
I feel like we kind of have to have a, Artosis, like how much you, this is going to be an interesting answer. How much do you really think 1v1 competitive RTS could be? Like, how many viewers could there be for just that mode if it was just Brood War still?
Oh, it could be gigantic, I think. Like the thing is we don't have any opportunities to do anything, right? Like the esports, they've been cutting budget since 2016. 2016 was the peak of StarCraft 2 esports. Just for anyone who doesn't realize this, that's when they were really going hard, and then after that budgets started getting cut. I know specifically because I work with everyone, and that was the year where everything was like, okay, this is how we want it, and then after that it was like kind of going downhill. I feel like if we actually had any budget, like instead of buying a fucking Overwatch team, if someone took that money and made some esports, maybe we could get something big. Instead, I guess let's just have 9 fucking Overwatch teams that are named after electricity. That's great. Okay, cool.
You know, this actually is a perfect answer because it kind of goes on my other point that I was going to make. If we zoom out a little bit here, all right, like I think there is not such a high cap. All right, I'm not going to say it's 9 billion people viewer. I don't think we could, beat League of Legends viewership and all that, but I think it could be much higher than what it is, of course.
Yeah, I'm not saying it would necessarily be the biggest esport, but it could be gigantic, right? Like the thing is, look at sports. Tennis gets good viewership. It does. Right? Like we can get up to like a really reasonable rate. Are we going to be bigger than basketball? Probably not, because so many people play team games and shit, and they like that because it's easier and they can blame teammates and shit when they lose. Okay,
dude, cool. Come on. That's such a fucking awful thing to say to preface your argument with. Come on, we say that every fucking time we talk about other games, and it's so disrespectful. Like, come on. The fact that it's easier is why it's more popular.
Like, dude, more people play. More people play.
Why do we always default to that as the excuse for why it's bigger than us?
More people play it. That's why. That's why. More people play these other games.
Wait,
is it not true?
The way people say that in this community is just so fucking disrespectful.
Wait, how awful?
Yeah, that's okay. Yes, okay, it's disrespectful, but more people play the game. That's why they get so much more viewership.
Is there not?
They have way more people.
Yeah.
What else is it, Nate? What else are they doing better? I think it adds, but yeah.
Well, we were back to the thing that we were talking about. The other thing about those types of games is that they don't have everything obfuscated. There's like 3 different menus you got to click through to play a game of StarCraft with like 11 different modes. There's a simplification of that would have helped a lot. If they just put a multiplayer playlist or like put you into anything, right? If you want to have it like the way that you would do it in like COD would be like you would pick which types of modes or maps you want to play, and then you just enter a queue. CSGO does it. That is so easy to play a game of that. You don't even have to choose what you want to do. You could just be like, these are all the maps that I want to play, and it's just going to put you in a fucking queue and get you into whatever comes out first. StarCraft doesn't have anything like that. If you want to play, you have to be like, I'm going to specifically do this. You can't just queue for 2v2, 3, and 4s all at once, or a co-op, right? Like there's no just jump in and play experience as well.
Isn't it, when you start up StarCraft, it's like it shows the campaign right off the bat, right? That's like
doesn't it just
and
take
if that's
like
the most played, that would make sense that that's the easiest one to click into, right?
Well, it just takes you to like an overview menu that doesn't show anything right now, right? It just
takes
I
guess
that's
big
true, space screen with the news on the left.
No, he's right about that. No, Nate's definitely
right. You can start a game with 2 clicks in League. You hit play, and then the modes are all right there. Boom.
The reason I asked how true was it wasn't to be facetious. I was literal. Like, I feel like there are a lot of other things that other games do better, but I also do think absolutely the ease of a game is different. Like, personal experience, I know isn't exactly like everything, but absolutely if I'm playing another game, it's because I'm not wanting to be as stressed as when I play StarCraft. And that's what like everyone ever says to you whenever you talk about StarCraft. It's like, oh, it's too hard for me. I just like, chilling with my homies on League of Legends because I talk to cool people, talk like that. And I do think it's part of it. So I agree with Artosis in that fashion. And then the tennis versus basketball thing is also like a very old argument. But the one I was going to go into with that is that like, and I'll use the same analogy. We talk a lot about like monetization as if we expect this company to, Frost Giant or Dreamhaven or whatever to be basically be like, I want to be multimillionaires from it. I know Frost Giant has a lot of hope in RTS, but I feel like the greatest benefit of no longer working with Activision and Blizzard or, just like a humongous publishing company is that you no longer have to be maximizing profit. Like, how much are they expecting from this? If they are expecting to milk everything out of this game, and make it a mobile game as well, because that's also where all the money is. All right, they would have told us that. It would have been like, we're making a mobile game that is pay to win because we want the cash. It seems like they actually are totally on board with like realizing this isn't going to be a big old pig and filled with diamonds. We're going to want to sustain the esport. We want it to be successful. We want it to be good. But we keep on talking about all these things as if they're going to be pushing the monetization model to like the nth degree, that we all have to be like Activision. It all has to be like Overwatch, and it all has to be like League of Legends. Like it's the most famous thing. It's the most profitable thing ever. And it's like, is that really their goal? So when we talk
about the name.
Heroes versus no heroes, I mean, yes, if they want to make more money, I guess they should put in heroes. But is that the factor that's making them choose what to do?
That's a funny like sliding scale, I guess, when you think about it, right? Because it's like you have the Activision way, which is like make billions, and at the make billions of dollars one, you're like, RTS, we're not doing that. And then you have down here where it's like the indie publisher, where it's like just make exactly what you want and that's it, and who knows what's going to happen with that. You don't want that either. And so you have to kind of go in between somewhere where you're like, yeah, we want to make millions and we want to support it and keep it going. But we don't want to push it to the billions because that makes RTS suck. And we don't want to make too little because then we can't support it. Right? So it has to be some sort of middle.
That's the hardest part. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Because I like StarCraft too. I love SC2. I love playing 1v1s. I played a billion games of it. At the same time, I also recognize as someone who likes co-op and like campaign that the game and the way that the game is designed does not marry any of those things in the way that it could, that would actually, get people to try the other modes, right? You click on your window and you don't leave your window. You click versus, you never step outside of that, right? You click custom, you're probably just stuck there, or co-op. But it's having like interface setups where you have playlists, or like with League where when you click play, there's 3 modes, they're all right there. They don't tell you like, and that's a hard thing too, because that's like a growing pain of StarCraft is, well, at that point, then what are you doing to the custom community, right? And I don't want to lose that. I don't think anybody wants to lose that, like the range of creativity that people bring. But how do you also add that in without, complicating the user interface or messing with where people want to go? And how do you keep people across with each other? That's the thing that I think that's a big part of it, right? Is like, how do you actually have multiple modes where someone's like, oh, I could play some solos and then I could play some ARAMs, right? You don't have something like that for StarCraft.
Yeah. I agree with most of the points that have been made so far. And I also would like to say that it is true that like more people will play team games, and a lot of for example, a lot of people are playing Among Us obviously right now. And I think that a lot of that has to do with the social aspect. As I think that there is an element of people offloading responsibility onto their teammates. And I think that does contribute. I don't think that it's as drastic as we make it seem, and I think it adds, that rhetoric does add to the elitism of StarCraft and whatnot, but it is not a negligible factor either. And I think that more than that, perhaps, is just the sense of community, for example, that we had in Brood War or in Warcraft 3 never really existed in StarCraft 2. Like, I think that inside the game, like, chat channels would have been much more prominently displayed, would have been much better for the game, for example. I think that there's many things that can be done to like help kind of unite the community and kind of form communities around and within the game where you don't feel like the experience is extremely just lonely. And I think that all of that is compounded right now by Corona, right? Because people don't want to, it's like Corona is like really anti-StarCraft in a way, because StarCraft is an isolating game already. And Among Us is the opposite of that, where Among Us is the most social game, and it's kind of you just chill with your friends and you just talk and stuff like that. And I think that's that has to do also with the virus, so that's
definitely
taken into account.
I didn't think of that.
There's a lot of things that were missed out on. I mean, customs, arcades, AI, team games, like it all felt like it was worse than Brood War when StarCraft 2 came out. But I feel like we've gotten really off track.
we may have, but actually the conversation's much better than what else we were talking about, I guess.
I think Artosis is right though about how the team games just have more people in general playing. And I was just taking a browse on like Twitch for a moment here, and I was just thinking to myself, okay, what if I took these numbers for StarCraft and multiplied it by like 6 for example, because most games have like 6 people who play, and then, you know, it's literally right at the top, like right next to, like just below League of Legends. And so when you think about StarCraft in general, it's doing really well, in my opinion, for how the game is set up and how complex the game is. And if you look at esports as a whole, and we were talking about like changes, like Nate was suggesting, like, hey, if we switched units out, like, would that really kill the balance that much? I don't think so. I think we would still have Protoss, Terran, and Zergs winning and doing kind of crazy shenanigans, because through the evolution of StarCraft, we've always seen different competitors come at the top, regardless of what kind of changes happen to the game, as long as they're not extremely drastic, as we were talking about. So when it comes to that announcement, I'm still pretty optimistic about it. It seems like they still care about the esports aspect of it. And I do feel like StarCraft is going to keep going for the long run here, just like Brood War did.
Well, that's actually kind of segues into something I did want to talk about with this, right? Because part of the announcement from Blizzard, StarCraft 2 Esports, which is part of the highest echelon of professional competitive gaming, will also continue going strong as it has been through our partners ESL Gaming and GSL. So that was part of the announcement, right? To kind of alleviate fears. And we do have this wonderful 3-year deal that you mentioned, Zombie Grub, is like, that was, what an amazing thing that was 10 months ago when they announced that. It was like, damn, yeah, 3-year contract. That's great. What happens at the end of that contract?
Right.
Because
pop a bottle of
GSL and ESL
champagne.
are funded by Blizzard in a great degree. Right? So what happens?
Yeah, so that's always been the issue, though. Like, people are using this announcement right now to be like, just forget about it. And that's really what's upsetting, is because there's at least two more years. Katowice, 2023 is the last tournament. For me, I don't know about y'all, but it's been every year, basically, since 2018 was the end of the 2-year agreement, right? So that was a big question mark. And then 2019 was only a 1-year deal. That was a big question mark. Certainly there's been lots of talk of StarCraft dying before that, but those are the real, like, oh god, it's the last expansion, like, what are we gonna do? I truly think that after 2023, my expectation is that ESL will pick it up to a very, very small degree, like Katowice, and that's it, or to lands if we're back to actually traveling somewhere. Very small, almost like what they're doing with Warcraft now, but maybe even smaller. And then that the community as we have it right now will basically continue to exist pretty much the same. Like, all the online tournaments, all the random gigantic sponsors that sponsored King of Battles and stuff like that will still happen for quite some time. My guess is like 2-ish years before people, you know, start having trouble finding full-time pros to play, before everyone starts getting depressed, before, I don't know, Wardy moves on to being a professional Among Us streamer. Whatever, right? Those are my expectations, anyways. And then the streamers, if people make their lives out of this, like a pig, right, or Nate, I feel like they would. Did we lose someone? Oh, we just lost our producer. I hope that's not a problem.
Nah,
okay, we're good.
I think we're all right.
All right. But like Pig, for instance, I could see actually playing StarCraft for quite some time afterwards, because there's certainly a lot of formerly big esports or esports that are never really esports, but just like really active communities that still love watching their favorite guy. You know, tons of Warcraft streamers were doing it before Warcraft was reforged, stuff like that. I think they can make jobs out of it, but that's my expectation.
How is Brood War doing? Is it Blizzard funding Brood War?
So there's a little bit of funding that goes in. It's almost completely to the Korean scene. The foreign scene is very, very small in Brood War. So that's understandable. But Brood War has an ecosystem via streaming on Afrika TV, and it's actually doing quite well in Korea overall. Like, Brood War is on regular TV out here. Afrika TV views for the big tournaments, for ASL and stuff, are comparable to other top esports in the world, just amongst Korean viewers on Afrika TV. Not like 1 million viewers, but definitely we see days of 100,000 to 150,000 viewers. So, yeah, it's Brood War is doing pretty well, and I think Brood War won't be affected because it's so Korean based and it's kind of got its own thing going on.
If for some reason StarCraft 2 just got defunded completely, do you think it would survive in Korea? Just like Brew War does?
No, it would go the same. I think that StarCraft 2 in Korea, if GSL ceases to exist, I think already StarCraft 2 in Korea is in a very bad spot. Honestly, we don't get that many viewers. For years, it's the people who show up to the studio. We actually have had 50% at least being non-Koreans that show up to the studio for GSL, which is insane when you think about 1% of people in Korea are non-Korean. So that's like, what? Like, how could that even be? We don't have a deep talent pool in Korea. There's not a lot of amateurs. There's not many people showing up. If you go to an ASL qualifier, you get so many people that show up that don't have a chance. You go to a GSL qualifier, the 33rd best player in Korea doesn't come. Like, what the fuck? Like, really? that doesn't even make sense. So, yeah, I think StarCraft 2 basically would collapse completely and maybe go the same route as Heroes went, because Heroes collapsed in Korea completely when all the hero stuff dried up. But there are community things that happen occasionally in Korea for that, for the people who like it and enjoy it. There's still some, but it's definitely not to the level it was.
Yeah. I think something else interesting to consider that we haven't really talked about it all. It's a bit off topic, but just the trend, the direction that the industry is headed towards, right? We're still in a kind of weird place, especially, I'm this year as specifically, I guess, kind of aside, but just going into this year, Blizzard esports kind of been interesting, right? With the way that people have been viewing Blizzard, right? They've taken a lot of negative PR with a lot of their folks that have been leaving, the articles coming out about cutting costs, tons of people getting fired, closing down the European office. And they made like a pretty massive commitment with their Overwatch League stuff when they announced it about how it was going to be the biggest esport. I was going to do that. And as companies like Google, actually going back to them, will show you that some of these projects, when they eventually dry up or the investors are like, hey, look, we know you guys are still spending like insanely stupid amounts of money and we're getting nothing for it, especially compared to those who invest in other leagues. There's the possibility that either it somehow really succeeds well and they have extra resources and they're like, hey, this is the time when we're going to try and bring things back. In 4 years, we could have an announcement, or 3 years, we could have an announcement that they're working on another strategy game. I think it's something to be positive about. And conversely, and this is my meme, if it just bombs out and mega fails and they kill it, are they going to completely just stop with anything esport related? I don't see that happening either, personally. So I don't see a reason why 3 years from now, the conversations inside Blizzard are going to be completely different, because right now they're going through, like, at least from that public perception and with what they're working on, they're trying to save their branding with Diablo 4. They're trying to completely capture back the original people that liked all those Path of Exile people, all that. If that succeeds and Owl has any level of success, we suffered as StarCraft. Like, we know that some of the things that were happening got cut because the company wasn't doing as well. Like, we were a part of those. StarCraft was a part of those budget cuts and all of that stuff. So if things get better in any normal way, then there's a possibility that they want to look into other areas again because it's not as much of a risk for them. Or they have to take a risk because what they're working on now doesn't work. But we don't know anything big that they're working on other than Overwatch and Diablo and I guess some phone game crap or whatever. So, I mean, in 3 years, I think we have a very different conversation no matter what.
Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? Like, again, going back to that 3-year deal is coming out of nowhere. Like 2019, I was pretty sure I was going to say, goodbye to so much of the offline casting. And then it was like 3 years. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So it's like, it's esports, man. Like that's usually the blanket statement I give. It's like, I've never thought next year was secure outside of like my own Twitch stream, right? For a little while longer. But I never knew what my place was going to be amongst the commentators, even to begin with, as one of the people who came in like pretty late down the line. And I know that's why the announcement the announcement felt like it was for everyone else. Like, I don't know, that's the best way to put it. And just for me, it was like, it's the same. It's the same. I don't pay $5 for a new commander because there's one commander this year and one more just this year. I guess I'm not paying that money next year. Cool, whatever. Not going to change my opinion of StarCraft. And I doubt it would change many people's opinion for a while yet. I do think eventually that lack of new content is going to turn off some people, but it's going to take a while to do that.
Yeah.
And then we'll see what happens afterwards. But it's such a far away conversation.
And that is the best. That's the best thing. If you don't like the idea of change or any other stuff, you've got 2 years guaranteed. At the very least, I would drink heavily and watch all of it personally. That's my strategy.
Yeah, I don't want to sound like I'm trying to be pessimistic here, but I think that like seeing what happens is not the position that we in this call should be taking. Like I think that the position that we should be taking is to be proactive, to rebuild kind of like grassroots tournaments and grassroots esports, because that is where Blizzard kind of took over and now they're gone. And now if there's going to be more, it's kind of up to us again. So it's back to that conversation that you remember that conversation. I think we talked about it, CG, about the conversation that Destiny had with In Control and Idra. Yeah, now I'd be siding with In Control and Idra. Whereas before I would have sided with the pressure in Blizzard to do something because I thought that was the best. Now it's kind of just up to us. And I think that we're doing decent. I think that the Pylon show, for example, does a lot of the things that we need structure-wise to like promote like smaller, like the part that I fucking hate sitting through in the Pylon show is when Dan is reading the thing. That's why he's doing it at the end, right? But that part is so important for like the small content creators to actually like do anything, right? Like that's part of the ecosystem and parts of the ecosystem that we didn't have before that we have now, for example. Another thing that's really important, for example, is ladder activity, which is why I think like ladder heroes ran by Ravi is really important. And that's something that we could focus on as a community, that we could like try to expand and make larger, because it's important that the players are active on the ladder and that doesn't feel like there's a heavy dip, right? I think that there's things that everyone could be doing, including DreamHack and ESL. For example, DreamHack and ESL have quotas of how much advertisements and how much views they gotta hit for their contract with Twitch, I imagine, right? So that's why they're doing like reruns after each broadcast, which makes sense, and then they get to run ads. Obviously, the reruns get like one fraction, like 1/10 of the viewership or something. And the problem, from my perspective, in what ESL and DreamHack, as much as thank you for hiring me, but the problem I see is that they're choking a lot of content creators out from the environment whilst the DreamHack season is going on, because it's just overpopulating everything. That the place is so stupid that if you are a streamer and you can't stream to compete, because you can't compete with DreamHack and ESL while they're running and they run for an entire month every day, right? Then you're kind of getting choked out, and that is essential parts of the community that we need, because in the off season, it's the streamers that keep the viewers engaged for the next DreamHack, right? So like from that perspective, I think that DreamHack, for example, like I personally have messaged them, but I would love it if more people like were on board with this and maybe pressure them, but they should do something for the ecosystem to give back. Like I think it would be cool if say like 2 or 3 days a week, if they were to have a program where they host streamers after the broadcast is done, and all of a sudden you expose Mcanning to 5,000 people or 3,000 people or however many stay, and then as a result streamers grow and they can keep the ecosystem going for the next season of DreamHack. Like I think that we all need to be working together to make the environment, like the whole of the ecosystem of StarCraft 2, actually work in a congruent way, where we're not leaving it up to chance or to hope that we can do that, something will pop up because it's esports, but rather that we can do it. We can actually, but it takes effort from all parts.
I mean, yeah, we could be doing a lot more, and asking DreamHack and ESL to do that would be great. I'm afraid they would just be an automatic no, but there's no harm in asking. But that is something like I'll touch on and arguing people in chat, is that it is such a different place. Like if this was how things were for the last 5 years, this whole like a month for each season, taking up all the grassroots, like that'd be really concerning when it's suddenly gone, right? Like that would be entirely Blizzard funded. But like even when I was discussing this on my stream, I wrote down every tournament organizer, every tournament that was happening, even during this very, very busy season when DreamHack is happening. And the amount is pretty staggering yet still. I mean, easily 20 plus tournaments in the span of a month, right? And then oftentimes more than that when DreamHack's not going on. With prize ranges, the prize pool range is quite astounding, because we had King of Battles for $30,000, and then you have DreamHack, but then you have Wardy with $6,000, doing his thing. Like we're already in a much better position than, for instance, Heroes of the Storm, which was they did fully jump on Blizzard. Like Blizzard was their thing. Their grassroots got cut, and if Overwatch got cut, same thing. That was actually one of the biggest discussion points of Overwatch when everyone was like Overwatch League. Everyone who was doing grassroots stuff was like, well, fuck us, like, God, I guess Team Envy doesn't exist anymore. We're already in that good position. We could definitely be doing more, as Kat said, but that is also a reason why it's so just less of a final, head chop. It feels
okay.
Like
we
life
can do it.
continues on.
I'm positive that we can refloat the community because the StarCraft is a game that actually like Blizzard kind of stole because they saw that it was going the road of Kespa, where like the community took over and became Kespa, and they kind of ruled over, right? Whereas in StarCraft 2, they said, well, we don't want that. We want to control the environment and the ecosystem. So they invested, but already we were doing fine without Blizzard when they first started investing. So we can do the same as we were doing back then.
Yeah, actually, the road might have even been better that we were on because it was like ESL, DreamHack, MLG.
Yeah,
we're all competing against each other, making better and better and better StarCraft content, and then, well, the rest of the story.
Yeah, exactly. Then Blizzard came along and said, "No, it's my baby, and none of you guys get the rights, right?" Or something of the sort.
Something like that.
And then we kind of all got fucked. But we can kind of go back to that to a smaller scale, right? And yeah, I think I really think it'll take like a lot, like from not just us as content creators and from DreamHack, which is at this point the equivalent to Blizzard, like DreamHack ESL. I think that they're the biggest authority as far as making the ecosystems continue to work. And I think that I could bring this, I have brought this idea to them, and it wasn't a straight no. It's like, let's look into it, because the sales point is the truth, which is if you don't do this by next year, you're not going to have like as many viewers, so you're not going to be as sustainable. Like, this is investing into their own future because the streamers will keep the ecosystem alive and going. Does that make sense? Like, it's not like they're going to lose out on the long run, I think, if they do this. And also, like, the community is so quiet in StarCraft. Like, I say this like almost every time that I come on this Pylon show, but like, I feel like there's 2,000 people watching, right? Like, that's a lot of people. And streamers in StarCraft 2, I think we get a lot more subscribers than streamers per capita than streamers in other games.
Yeah.
Right? Like, obviously we're smaller in terms of like how many people watch, but per capita, I think StarCraft players and the base like has money and is willing to spend it and are supportive and all of that, but we are not loud at all. And that is, I think, where we really fail as a community, is in spreading content and in making noise and in creating a little bit more echo for things that go on. Like, sometimes like things happen, and I'm really disappointed that it just went completely unnoticed, right? Like, it's like if I beat Mana in a fucking EPT Cup, and I'm like, with Protoss, I beat Mana with Protoss, okay, in an EPT Cup, and I'm like 1,500 less MMR than Mana, and there was nothing nowhere. I was searching cats like crazy.
Did you actually do that?
He did.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're fucking badass, man.
Protoss, yeah. Yeah,
damn.
But then I was searching Reddit and
good.
Team Liquid, and I'm not great, but I was trying really hard, And then, but I was searching everywhere, and there was no mention of it anywhere. And as a player, as a personality, whatever, like, I'm like, oh well, I guess it doesn't matter. Like, it's just nothing, right? It's just a drop into that makes no fucking ripples at all, and that's demotivating. And I think that one person fucking going and having made a Reddit thread and being like, hey, cats beat Mana, it would have made my day. In fact, like, there was like a couple of comments on Team Liquid on the thread, and that kind of made my day, And yeah, I don't know. I just think shit like that should, like, in general, like, just making more echoes and like just being more supportive of each other, and yeah, it would go a long way.
It'd hype up people and keep people around. Yeah. Agree.
So I think in general, there's a lot missing as far as like the youthfulness of StarCraft goes. Like, honestly, that might be due to our older viewership, is why there's not as many posts, right? But also, it just feels like I could compare some of our viewership numbers to other like esports that are doing okay, like some of their smaller tournaments, but still people are pretty happy with. And the reaction of me telling it was Rocket League versus StarCraft would be really different. Like, we are someone's grandpa. I said this in a podcast, I'll say it again. Like, we're the grandpa that everyone respects for fighting on World War II, but forget to visit in the news, right? Play StarCraft, and they're like, "Wow, I really like StarCraft. Go get him, guy." And then they leave you, and they're just like, Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Thanks.
a lot of people remember me from the StarCraft days. You know, it's like, oh, Cats, I remember you from the
Yeah.
StarCraft days. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool, man.
StarCraft days.
I'm still in the
Perception
StarCraft days, buddy.
going on. The perception of us is that we're old and tired, even though we're saying we're trying to point to like numbers and like, you know, concurrence and the amount of money that our viewers are willing to spend. And they're just like, yeah, but you guys are really old, you know, like it really sucks as a perception goes. So like, posting more and bringing that life into it would really be helpful. I know BC Cutie made this tweet. I'm going to ask you guys about. I have my own opinion, but he was like, if you guys don't think that this announcement won't affect sponsors, if you guys think this announcement won't affect sponsors, then you're being silly or something along those lines. Do you think that this announcement, you know, and the way that it's dragged the community down is going to be most impactful to sponsors? Do you think the announcement itself that Blizzard no longer is going to be making content impacts the sponsors at all?
I think the numbers will be impacted. I think the numbers have already been impacted, but I think the numbers were already being impacted from the lack of content and from like just the vibes overall. Like I was already kind of worried about about the path that we were going. Like everything that I just said about how we need to make things happen, I posted on a video before the announcement and before I knew there was going to be an announcement. Right. And the reason I bring this up is because I think that these were already problems that we have to address, like in how we treat our ecosystem to kind of like last over time. Because I didn't expect, like before the announcement, I didn't expect that Blizzard was actively producing or looking, you know, producing a lot of content or looking much into how to keep the game afloat on the production end of things. So I think that sponsors, like, I mean, what you would sell to sponsors is the numbers. And I think the numbers are being affected, but not that drastically. I think we're still all right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm of the same opinion. Like maybe some people are a little like wondering, right? So they're going to ask whoever they've got a contact for and be like, hey, does this mean anything? And you're going to have to, you know, provide numbers to them. But I know, you know, for a fact that things are still happening with some pretty big names behind the scenes. And as far as I know, like an email last week. Now I was going to have an updated email just right after the show. And it's going to be like, just kidding. But as far as I know, that stuff is all still happening, despite Blizzard's lack of interest in us, despite us losing our father's approval. Like, I don't think it ever really mattered, actually. They've always either been big StarCraft fans or they've liked the numbers as they are. And as long as the announcement doesn't drag people down and convince them to stop watching StarCraft 2.5 years earlier than they should, then we're still going to be fine with the sponsors. But I've never been in one of these meetings. I've never been a fly in the wall. I would love to be. That's why I'm bringing the question to you guys.
Well, I know at least from when I talk to companies about this, or actually when I talk to like my sponsors, you know, a question that comes up is, hey, are you trying to stream other stuff? We don't care if you get less viewers. Like there is something to be said. Yeah, I've had that conversation like with Corsair, for example, who sponsored me. They're like, we would like you to do other stuff, even if it doesn't generate the same content, because you reach potentially a wider audience, right? And I think that that's something worth considering. But the reality is that StarCraft will go on as long as the people want it to go on. Like, if there's one thing that I think we can mostly safely say about Blizzard, it's not just going to like turn the servers off in 2 years when the tournament scene ends. Like, they still maintain all the old shit. If you want to play Diablo 1 online or 2 or whatever, Brood War, right? All that stuff is still there. And if people want to put the tournaments together, you know, will as many people show up? Maybe not. If you were only ever watching StarCraft because you had some weird deep-seated hope that it was going to have 500,000 viewers if you just stuck with it long enough, I mean, you're just delusional. Like you're just being delusional with yourself. Like at the end of the day, DreamHack and ESL could have been over at the end of this year, right? Hypothetically. And if people want to still play in tournaments, people can still put up small prize pools. You can still get people there. Are you going to see the same motivation for people to be as good? No, but I mean, that's just the way that it is, right? That's just the way that it's going to be. Unless you can convince somebody by showing that these smaller tournaments can bring value, you're not going to get, you know, the bigger fish to show up and be like, okay, well, I'll just eat this tournament that gets 5,000 viewers because I can make it get 10,000, right? And if that happens, then maybe someone comes along and they're like, I think I could get this 15,000 or 20,000. So like at the end of the day, if people come together and they want to work on this and make it happen, it's going to be super hard. It's going to be the most difficult thing this community's ever had to do, because since the beta, we've had corporations burning money on us, literally almost I have not spoken to a single person other than I think specifically like Total Biscuit Sandisk tournament where they're like, yes, these tournaments actually make money for us. Like people haven't been making money off of running StarCraft productions unless you're, being paid white label like ESL or DreamHack, where they get paid a separate amount outside of what's going into the prize pool to actually do the job. So at some point, people were going to stop burning money. But if the community can come together and build something that is even remotely profitable, however small, and can build that, that's basically, at least like that's what I say, like that's your long-term future for SC2. Because there's also a very strong possibility that the majority of folks listening to this, like I said, are going to look at whatever comes next, whether it's from Blizzard or Frost Giant or Dreamhaven, and they're going to say, this isn't StarCraft. I don't want this. I want what I already have. Well, if you don't want what you have to die when the tournament scene is over, now is the time for people to come together and find out what that's going to be.
So this entire time that we've been on the show, we never really mentioned anything about the pandemic. Did the pandemic have an impact on Blizzard in the fact that they would release these people from working for StarCraft? This is my biggest question.
Well, some of the people were already gone from Blizzard before the pandemic hit, to note. And then otherwise, I guess we'll never know. We'd have to ask them.
I wouldn't think so, right? Like the gaming industry of all industries, I think, has been the least affected by the pandemic in general.
That would be my impression of it.
It increased because of the pandemic, because so many people would just hop online and start playing games.
I don't think Blizzard let the StarCraft people go. I think the StarCraft people got bored of doing nothing forever.
Yeah, I think that's more like what happened. I think that they might have, like, I don't know if they let go like the more expensive people, but otherwise, they kind of just sit there and then it's like me to say.
They let people go before the pandemic. That big firing that they did. They got rid of a lot of good StarCraft people there, which was a big kind of sign on the wall, I guess. But
yeah,
I think there's been a shift since Mike Morhaime left, right? Like that's probably, I don't know if that's why he left, but like since he left, like there's been a little bit of a shift where Blizzard like seems to have worried less about like certain standards that like promoted like things like fan loyalty, which are really difficult to like figure out, like whether it's making you money, right? Like it's very difficult to pin down like things like loyalty and how much that's worth. And I think that Blizzard was kind of like turning a page on behalf of like immediate profit. And I think that's where a lot of the cuts that we've seen came from. And I think that, that's kind of consistent with what happened with Heroes and with StarCraft 2. And like, it's like you get a bunch of disappointed communities. A lot of people that in the past would have been like, Blizzard all the way are just not Blizzard all the way. I think that difference in approach is a bigger factor than the pandemic in itself, I think. I think that when Mike was around, he basically wouldn't have maybe let,
when Mike was in charge, this would never look like this. That's just not like the way that he did things ever. But it's been kind of like we've seen various things kind of signaling towards what we're looking at right now for a while now, I think too.
Yeah.
That being said, I would love to move us over to the Patreon questions, because I think people actually have asked a lot of questions that are pertaining to this subject for this week. Yeah, go right ahead. I know that Zombie Grub does not have forever from now, so let's jump into the Patreon questions. Guys, if you want to ask a question, the questions are still open. You can go ahead, patreon.com/The Pylon Show, or check out thepylonshow.com. To go ahead and ask. All right. First, I'll jump into the questions that were asked last week for the Frost Giant episode, but we moved them to this week because, they were not appropriate for that episode. Okay, let's go ahead and start. Glenn asks, with the success that StarCraft 2 is having on YouTube, especially GSL, the recent no more content to purchase news has left me shocked. Nobody owns soccer or tennis. StarCraft is such an amazing sport. Can you envision a sustainable future for StarCraft without Blizzard? How do we get there? Definitely something we've been talking about some this episode, but what do you guys think?
it's kind of a trap though, right? Even if you could theoretically build it that big, at some point the licensing issue comes back into play, right? Like in case you don't know, if you want to run a tournament above $9,999, just speaking generally, not you specifically, but like if you want to have a 10 grand tournament, you have to have a license from Activision Blizzard. So there's like, it's kind of a weird thing where as you approach that amount, you have to start working with them, and then their willingness to assist you or work with you becomes a part of that as well. I would say I can see very easily grassroots scene existing, but do I think you're still going to be seeing like $10,000, $20,000 prize pools in tournaments after that? Probably not. No.
That is a good point, right? Like if you are, it kind of makes you feel like if you're going to be raising this money, if you're going to be really putting in the effort to grow the scene, at the end of the day, the publisher has a lot of power to take control and kind of make your life difficult, make your life less profitable, and things like that.
Yeah. And there's still stuff like no land, right? That's also going to constantly be a potential issue.
All right. Thanks for the question, Glenn. Sorta Cannon asks, what would happen if Blizzard released the source code of StarCraft 2 for the community to maintain for themselves? Do you think it would be possible for the community to update the game? And how would such an effort be organized? That's I don't know much about that type of thing. It feels like so big.
That's as likely as someone reverse engineering it and releasing the source code to everybody. It's never going to happen.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it to say anything.
Yeah, I'm not too up to date on things like that.
So basically, a modding community is
yeah.
The problem is that when you look at other games, modding communities are relatively small, but they're very consistent. It's almost as if, hey, Blizzard stopped supporting the tournament scene, stopped their funding. So now the community is taking over. Basically, if we had a modding community, it would be significantly smaller than what it would have been without that funding anyways, I feel like.
Yeah.
It would be fun, though. Yeah.
If we had all the code, I guess. Some geniuses could do something crazy with it. Thanks for the question there, Sorta Cannon. Sorry we're not super good at that one. Knocked Cop asks, apparently my question are neither too convoluted or not specific enough, so here I go again. Would StarCraft 2 be better with better unit AI? Lings getting out of the way of ultras, stalkers, recognizing that they have to leave gaps for charge lots, or dropships and spellcasters obeying a move intelligently. Would you guys like that for the game to kind of units to use themselves more efficiently, I guess?
I'm the pro casual guy, and I don't think that. No. StarCraft 2 does it very well, as is.
Yeah.
Very, very well. It's intuitive enough that putting extra input in generates an impact, and it works well enough that if you don't want to do that, you can still play the game.
Yeah, the problem with that approach is that you're restricting the freedom of the player to actually choose their moves, because I might see a move that's better than what you're proposing. So how do they code for that,
They have kind of done a little bit with that. Like, for instance, High Templars getting an auto attack was so that they wouldn't attack move into the army, right? Yep. So that's like kind of, that keeps them a little bit further back.
I think that's a soft. Yeah, I think stuff like the High Templar they can do.
Sure.
There's quite a bit of autocast already in the game as well. If you look at cyclones, shield batteries, things along those lines. I do feel like if you were to compare it to like Brood War, it's probably a little bit easier in that kind of sense, even though the game is a lot faster.
Yeah, but never arbitrary things like links getting out of the way of charge lots or whatever that.
Yeah. Yeah, imagine if Stalkers split all of a sudden. That would be like, the Protoss army would be so sick. This charge lots just go right to the front. All right, thanks for the question, Knockcop. Hope that answers it for you. Sate Zero asks, time for a silly, how can we ruin StarCraft design proposal? How would upgrades not being retroactive change the game? Examples, Marines that already exist when STIM researchers do not magically get it, only new made ones would, and add a retrofit factory facility for existing units if you want. So your upgrade finishes, but your units you already have don't get it.
You start building the retrofit factories in the middle of the map.
Yeah, really.
You proxy them so your sim comes with everything.
Take it a step further. Make it so the units have to go back to the barracks. They go through half their build time, then they come out with the new upgrades. There you go.
That's cool.
If we could just needlessly complicate it a little bit more, that'd be great.
As a Terran, I would play bio, and I would start upgrading my mech and switch right in the mech and abuse it. I think that's the way to go.
That's
Actually, isn't there one upgrade? Don't energy upgrades function like this? Oh wait, no, they don't, do they?
No, they.
I want to say that
they do. Yeah,
They
you're
do,
right, you're
actually.
right, yeah.
So the
You're
units
right.
that are
They
original
do.
don't
So I
get.
am remembering this correctly. Like
Yeah, you
basically,
are.
I'm pretty sure if you start the unit before the energy upgrade's done, it comes out with the original.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's pathogen glands. So we have to start it, halfway or a little before.
To be fair, that does usually have to do with the research time of the upgrade. But the unit, if the unit it's building and the upgrade finishes while it's building, it comes out with the energy. But yeah,
Right.
units don't retroactively get it once they're out on the map. Like an infestor that finishes right before won't just get 25 energy when the upgrade's done.
Right.
Imagine that. That would be crazy. All right. Thanks for the question, Say Zero. It's I don't think anyone wants to see that. Sorry. Rolling Rock asks, what are your target minimum APMs for each ladder rank?
No answer here.
Minimum APMs for each ladder? Oh,
APM's a
You
dumb
say,
stat.
honestly,
how
Stop
much
wasting your
APM do
time
you
with it.
need to go up? Yeah, SOS has 100 APM and he won the World Championships once. So
There's people in
He
GM
has
that
more
have
than
like
100.
He does
70
not.
APM. There's
He has like
people in
150 or
GM with
something.
70 APM.
Yeah.
It is one of the worst
SOS is
metrics to base your
incredibly
goals
slow.
off of. If you watch a pro and they're like 700 APM, it's because of their keybinds. Like seriously,
That's true.
don't take
That is
that
true.
number as seriously.
Not entirely, right? Like there's a lot of it that
No,
is,
dude.
like
No,
spam.
nobody's no. It's you. The difference of getting 300 to 700 APM doesn't make you a GSL winner.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
of course not.
No,
Yeah,
that's
I agree.
certainly true, especially with Zerg players. There's like a
Yeah.
lot of keybinds that you
Yeah.
can choose
I
to use
just
that'll
think
give you
way
1,000
too-
APM.
Exactly. I think people put way too much emphasis on this. You can be very good and
Mhm.
play slow.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Rusher.
The I think APM in StarCraft 2 is a little bit harder because of various keybinds that inflate it. It doesn't really do as
There's
much of a metric.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a thing that's like the repetition rate where so Zerg players, for example, when they build many units at once, you just press the same button and then in 2 seconds you made 30 Zerglings, and then that counts as all as individual actions basically. That or like corrosive vials you can also spam, or like creep tumors.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's stuff like
What
this.
I've actually noticed is that when I did follow APM, I noticed Zerg players tend to have the highest.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah,
really
it's those
make
keybinds.
much
Yeah,
sense.
it's because of the
And then
Keybinds.
usually Terran behind that, and then Protoss behind that.
yeah.
I do
Yeah.
think you could look at a general, like, yes, you can look at it like that. But I've always thought that Zerg had consistent actions. Terran had like consistent producing and making, but not as consistent as like everywhere at once. And then Protoss has like big gaps, right?
Yeah.
So they have to wait for the warp gate,
Totally.
or they have to wait for a fight to actually force
Yeah.
field. So that
Plus,
makes
like,
sense.
yeah, and when you look at it like, right, like a Marine builds quicker than a Zealot, for instance, so you actually just need more APM to deal with something like that. You have to look at like play styles.
Idle production time would be a stat that you could actually quantify improvement with your MMR. Is more my point. Like if you're like your APM is not going to affect you almost as much as literally anything else that you could pull out of a replay.
That being said, there's probably numbers. I don't know what they are for StarCraft 2. To put it in perspective, for StarCraft 1, the slowest pro gamer is 250 APM. That's the slowest.
I think
professional
SOS
level
is maybe
player.
the slowest, like top tier.
Generally,
Believe it.
Terran is a little bit quicker. Huh?
Look it up.
SOS is actually 100 APM. Oh, we got effed.
I think
We got
the stream
crashed.
cut out.
No.
I see
Hi,
some
guys.
funky graphics.
It says excellent still for connectivity.
Oh, people are
Yeah,
saying
we're
save
back.
now.
We're back. Saved. That's good.
We're back at it again.
Yeah, I hope someone looks up the APM of SOS. I remember seeing it on a stat sheet, even on for Pyeongchang. I want to say that it was like 121 average. Or
It
something
could be
like-
true.
That would
I
be
remember
crazy.
talking to Scarlett, and she was like saying how there was a Protoss cannon rusher, I think, because it was the like, it's so stereotypical, right? I would remember it. It's like a Protoss cannon rusher, and GM had like 80 APM, and like her and Neve were like making fun of him.
I mentioned cannon rushes earlier. Yep.
I love it. GM sub 100 APM cannon rusher. Amazing. All right. Hope that answers your question there, Rolling Rock. Combat Wombat asks, I'm watching TY versus stats and started to think about skill in the matchup versus preparation. Obviously, both players are skilled and prepared well. Style and luck/miscellaneous. What factors do you think contribute the most to a win and how much? Maybe expressed in a percentage per factor?
Too many
Kind of
numbers.
I'm just gonna say what I said before. Idle production time is a pretty massive one that people don't look at very often.
Okay, there's a
That's
list. I can go off a list.
What factors contribute to a win in StarCraft 2 and how much?
Oh, he just said style
that's
and
the
luck
question.
/ miscellaneous. That's not helpful. Shit.
Yeah, I don't think this is an answerable question, right? And each game should be different for that matter.
Both skilled and prepared. I feel like someone prepares more than the other usually when it comes to these.
Or someone's preparation fits what his opponent's doing more than the other person's preparation fits what his opponent is doing. I think that's what we see. I've actually been talking with Tasteless about this, how in both GSL and ASL at this point, I mean, the games are getting, people are getting so good at StarCraft 1 and 2. And everything is just turning into 3-0s, right? We have 3-0s, 4-0s fucking everywhere. And, you know, even when it's like a 4-1 or a 3-1, you're like, that one game was an anomaly, right? It was like, oh, you happen to do this and he happened to do that. And we're trying to figure out exactly what this is. And it feels like it might be preparation based because no one's going to keep a win rate like that, like playing randomly on the ladder. But when you're preparing for your opponent, it feels like someone has out prepared the other one and just their builds are just nailing it. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's the case, but it's
It can also be a
something.
stylistic clash. Like for example, when I was a decent player, I would play against certain players that were like I thought most of the pros were better than me, but then I would see that there were pros that were better than other pros that I could beat more consistently because there's people, for example, that are very organized or very plan oriented, and if you fuck with their plan, they fall apart. So there's such a thing as just stylistic clashes, for example.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
I was thinking more of the chess factor where you would set up a plan, your plan would get countered, but you have a backup plan. And so because you know that that's a potential scenario that you might run into. So like if you decide you want a cannon rush and the guy knows how to stop that, you immediately know that, hey, I've already dropped the gateway at my base. I'm not fully committed into this thing. So I'm going to fall back on this and I can cancel it and go right back. He already pulled his drones. He lost mining time, you know?
Yeah, some people definitely prepare like that, right? Like that would be like a stylistic thing, I think, in a lot of ways, because some people have plans A, B, and C, and I definitely do see even pro level games where I'm like, you only had plan A for this game. You know, it's like it'll just fall apart completely when it doesn't work. And it's like, oh well, yeah.
I guess to kind of answer the guy's question a little bit, then is like it feels like for GSL it's like 70% preparation. It's like, you know, really high number, right? And then for all the other tournaments, and this might be why GSL is having 3 0s and 2 0s, and DreamHack, you know, is having bigger and better and longer games.
Yeah.
For DreamHack, it's probably more like 30% or even less because we're talking about guys who play a game one day and then 16 hours later have to play another game. So like, how much are you really preparing?
Isn't that interesting? Do you think, is that just giving us better games, the weekend tournaments over the prep formats?
I think so, but then Wax
It feels
Angel
like it
accused
right
me
now.
of being biased because I get paid by DreamHack. So,
And I get paid by
Shit.
GSL, but I'm like, a lot of our games are just these blowouts where it's like someone's like, no, I got this build. Look at this. It's sick. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, it was sick, but I'd love to have a few more close games.
I mean, the clown fiestas are the funnest ones, right? Like you wouldn't have, you probably didn't watch the thing that happened just before the Pylon show, but
No.
Estrella versus Asuna, Cannon Rush into like Proxy Gateway Phoenix cheese into 35-40 minute like late game carrier where they base traded at. It was just what the fuck is this?
I will check that one out for sure. That sounds amazing.
Apparently, I'm watching the. I don't know how I missed that one. Damn.
Yeah, it was great.
Carrier versus Tempest, like there was like every unit made. It was a
Yeah.
pretty good game.
The dream.
Crazy. All right. Good answers. Thanks, Combat Wombat. Hope that answers your question. Gloop Glorp asks, with Blizzard dropping support for StarCraft 2, we're in limbo after the 3-year deal ends. With the lower production costs of the GSL space, do you think it would be viable to have only GSL? If 20 top foreigners could commit to Korea, plus the Korean players, it seems like enough to fill code S/A. Thoughts?
20 Korean. Oh,
Let me jump in there. I think that this is actually more likely the reverse, the opposite of what would be more likely. I think it is much more likely. So it says, basically, the question is like asking about like the support going way down and what happens. Can just GSL survive? I think it's more likely that the ESL based tournaments will continue and that Koreans can join that more easily. It's harder for people to move to Korea. ESL as a company is a company that makes esports content, and they have a long, nice history of selling sponsorships and things like that. I think that the foreigner scene does pretty well with online stuff. Whereas the Korean scene, it's like there's far less pros, and this is a streaming-based company rather than one that looks for sponsorships. We don't have English sponsorships on GSL. So like that, like I understand what you're saying, but I think it's literally the reverse is more likely than what this is saying.
Actually, kind of touching on that, you all saw Apollo's tweet, right? Kind of after the announcement. Like,
yeah,
I'm guessing that means that maybe like a region lock will be a little looser next year. This
people
might become more of a reality.
For people that missed that, Apollo basically was saying that the region locking thing may change a little bit. Maybe we can get some Koreans traveling again, which I'm down for totally.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you for the question there. Let me jump into questions in our Discord 1 second here. Okay. Red Gunner Guy asks, why not promote ASL during GSL and vice versa? It is only mentioned but rarely promoted with banner and graphics. Me and Tasis and I mention it. I don't know why they don't do it with banner and graphics. It's a good question, but we try to people coming back for both. They're on the same YouTube channel, so I think that helps as well. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not in charge of that aspect. Thanks for the question. Paragleber asks, on the last episode, you mentioned that the economies in StarCraft 1 and StarCraft 2 work quite differently, scaling versus linear or something like that. Can you explain this in more detail? As a low-level player, I was not really aware of this so far. How exactly do they work differently? All right. So there's actually a really well-written article on Team Liquid about the scaling economies versus linear. Basically, the economy in StarCraft 1 is a bit more complex the way it works. The SCVs, for instance, don't pair onto mineral patches well. So as you build more, you kind of get more for a longer period of time. Generally speaking, at the pro level in StarCraft 2, you just put 16 on each base, and it's kind of set it and forget it until they mine out those patches, 2 per patch. And that it makes it kind of a more linear, right? Like, okay, now your income's this, and now your income's that. Whereas there's a little bit more diversity of economy in StarCraft 1 because you have a wider range of what you can even choose to have on the patches. This is kind of like the thing that's written out on Team Liquid is going to give you a much better answer than what I'm saying off the top of my head.
A treatise on economy, I think is what it's called. The article on Team Liquid that you're referencing.
Okay. Yeah. So
good one,
check that out to read a bit more.
Yeah, I think it has to do with the AI, for example, as well, right? Like so they don't pair up as well, and then the brood war economy then benefits from having 1 drone per patch or 1 worker per patch, and then you can scale it, and it doesn't fall off because there's no overlapping, or it doesn't fall off as hard. But if you're Zerg, you want to spread, right, like 1 per work patch.
Yeah.
Basically makes it so that you're incentivized to expand a little bit sooner and stuff like that. Some of that, like Legacy of the Void tried to achieve, But yeah, one of my dreams was that they just changed the economy for StarCraft 2. That would have been so sick. Not because of that, just because it would be cool to,
If I'm not mistaken, in StarCraft 1, because I don't see it when I'm watching like ASL and stuff, if you have too many workers, they all start stacking on each other and bouncing between minerals.
They do.
Right? It becomes a waste. They just don't do anything.
It's not actually a waste though. Like, yeah, they bounce around a hell of a lot, but the more you put on, you actually are going to mine more because they won't pair to patches.
Because they're stupid, basically. They're
really stupid. But it actually makes the economy like a more complex puzzle to solve in StarCraft 1. We actually still have a very heavily evolving metagame of how many workers you actually want, even per base, like how many you transfer and things. There's a lot more talk in StarCraft 1 about how to correctly do an economy in a matchup as opposed to StarCraft 2 where it's like, yes, you stop at this many drones to make your Roach Warren. Okay. When it's held, you make your drones again. So it's definitely very different. I suggest reading the article on Team Liquid. And Terran Craft Guy has put out a little bit on stuff like this too.
I posted the article in the chat.
Nice.
Oh, perfect. So check out that link right there. Thanks for the question. I hope I did it a little bit of justice in that short answer.
Discord DMs, please.
Sure. Second. Oh, okay. And going onwards. Ass Rash asks, last time my question came off as a bit dirty, which was not my intention. I'm not always taken seriously because of my sleazy name, Artosis. I'm sorry if I embarrass you in front of your cool Yeti friends. Now to the meat of the question. Are zealots edible? And if yes, are they sentient food?
Yes.
Yes.
As much as humans are.
Yes.
That's right. We are sentient food, aren't we? That's a scary thing. Thank you, Azrash. Glenn Wheeler asks, do you know about the infinite nuke cheat on the Brood War ladder? Posted a few months ago on YouTube by Firebat Hero with a Jinjin sub. Seems pretty insane. Highly recommend the video if you haven't seen it. Both disturbing and impressive. What do you guys think about this and other hacks? Can anything be done? Yes, I was aware. It's hilarious to watch. And yeah, I think that one got patched out actually. It's like a hack. It's not like a
it's not a bug.
Yeah, it's not something you can just do. You have to download something to be able to do it, but you can basically send infinite nukes anywhere on the map. It's so there's a video that Firebat Hero went over where Scan, one of the top Terran players, played against it and still beat the guy, but he was just getting nuked everywhere. It was hilarious. But the guy was so bad.
That's hilarious.
It's like it was funny. Zombie Grub, I know you gotta get going. Is that right?
I got 15 more minutes.
Oh, 15? Okay.
Yeah.
Pog.
All right.
Pog.
Then we'll keep you for 15 more minutes. All right. Moving on. Zaubergarden asks, hi, I'm Zaubergarden, and there is a song that deeply touched me back in the day about the mutation of a Zergling. And since I account it high time for the good name of the Baneling to be cleared, I decided to translate it into English. It's on YouTube, Zaubergarden. Sorry, no question. All right. There's apparently a song about the Zergling or Baneling on Zaubergarden on YouTube. There you go. I guess that's an interesting way to do it. Yeah. Probably next time, just send that to This Week in StarCraft.
It has hardware.
Oh, there you go.
We can't play this because DMCA, but it exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm one of the only Twitch channels that didn't get DMCA'd. Apparently, the StarCraft music is okay. All right. Sate Zero asks, Artosis embrace the memes? I want an elaborate story about why so many people were banned on that fateful day. 420, 726, 19. If there is a real story, awesome, but I am not interested in the truth. Need that Artosis fanfic about why his channel lost their minds. Yeah, so apparently a bunch of people were banned on that day. Someone suggested that it might be because that was close to Jeff's passing date. That might have been my first stream back. So probably that's probably what it was actually. Not very funny, sorry. Say zero, but there you go. Thanks for the question. Knocked Cop asks, Do any of you have an answer for the lack of burrow from Zerg? It always seems to me that during a devastating Terran drop, having burrow would at least inflict a mule's worth of damage, while a lot of Zealot harass never seems to have detection with it. Never mind ZVZ run-bys. Oh, what do you guys think about that? Yeah, please.
Like, I am a huge advocate for this, and I think that Zergs should get and will get burrow like as soon as they can just fit it into their build and remember. Because I think that against Terran, just like burrowing a Zergling in each expansion is so fucking annoying for the Terran, and they have to drop like basically a mule worth of money, which is already kind of paying for your burrow. So I think the only problem that pros would bring up and would say is something like, yeah, but you know, it's so difficult to fit it into your build because it's so tight or something like that. And I think that's kind of bullshit, and I think they're wrong.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think burrow is just an underused mechanic. It's just like DT blink. Look how long it took for people to fucking use DT blink. Forever. But if you saved one DT one time, it was worth it. Holy shit. Good. Yeah, it's so good.
It's one of my favorite meta changes, honestly, this year. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised you say that as a Terran player, to be honest, but okay.
Yeah. I have to cast and watch it as well.
Yeah, this is more like a caster perspective.
I love casting. Dude, PvP is so fun to cast now. People just doing crazy shit with DTs all day. Yeah. Hell yes.
Yeah.
That's why I like PvP more than it like so much now. Yeah.
There goes my planetary.
Absolutely. 17 DTs blink in. It is not long for this world. Yeah, I think it just takes people a long time for their skill to catch up with. It's so hard to do extra things in the game and to figure out where they fit in, and it can take so long. It's so incredibly long for people to fit these things in.
I swear people were not evo blocking against like say Hellions and like other Rambites like that until just very recently.
Yeah.
And now
it's all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Because as soon as it happens once and one person sees that happen, everyone's like, well, that just makes sense. And then everyone does it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of that kind of thing. Yeah, same thing.
All right, thanks for the question, Nakcom. Some drunk Canadian asks, after a day of losing to Zerg, Artosis' assault level hits the roof, causing an aneurysm, leaving him only capable of casting Fortnite and playing Toss. The addition to replace him is you casting any match in StarCraft 2 history. Which match is it? Sending all's the love from the best coast to the west coast. I think the real question here is, what StarCraft 2 match would be your favorite to cast in history? You could go back and cast it.
I know what it is. I got one.
Okay.
MV. Oh wait, do we answer?
Oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
we're answering, right? Jaedong versus Deer semifinals BlizzCon. The roaches popping up to tackle the 2-base blink all in. Yeah, I would have loved to have cast that.
All right. Any other ones for you guys?
Squirtle MVP.
Yeah, well, it's a good overall match, but I was gonna throw out the Vortex thing because I wanted to be part of like Tastes of Artosis yelling, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, I wanted. That's explicitly the reason why. In fact, I would have. If I was actually casting that, my meager mind wouldn't have been able to handle it, and I would have also had an aneurysm and ended up playing Fortnite with Artosis.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think I have an answer. It's so difficult. I don't know.
I don't have an answer for StarCraft 2, but for Brood War, I really love Slayer's Boxer versus, I think it was Stork. I don't remember. I don't know what the date was. It was before StarCraft 2 when I watched it. And it was carriers with ghosts and lockdown and medics flaring observers and with wraiths and stuff. It was literally the coolest game in StarCraft 2 that I've seen, which is actually the one game that got me really serious into playing like the unorthodox style that I do because of Slayer's Boxer. So like literally that was the best game I've ever watched of StarCraft.
Nice.
Actually, for me, I want to say there is one match that I remember that happened, and I just wanted to cast it so bad because it was one of the most brilliant things I ever saw. I think it was a Pro League match, and if I recall correctly, it was Maru versus Effort. And I was watching that, and it was just one of the best games I ever saw. It was just pure brilliance from Effort in his tiny stay within StarCraft 2, because he like went back to Brood War really quickly. I guess the game didn't really fit him, but I felt like he brought something completely different from what every Zerg was doing, and it was like really close, and it was just an awesome, brilliant thing for the time. And just barely didn't end up working in that game, if I recall. And I was like, damn, I wish I could have cast this because I have so much to say about it.
Okay, now I have one because you just made me think of one. I remember Moon when he played StarCraft 2 the dude from Warcraft 3. When he played StarCraft 2, he was the first Zerg player that was going like for 100 drone strategies, and then it disappeared completely until now again. So like Moon, Red was kind of making a lot of drones. Sure, there was always that meme, but Moon was making insane amount of drones and just flooding over units. I guess a Moon game, would have been cool to cast. Just because people were like, "What the fuck is he doing?" You know, like, I'm like, this is so cool.
I got to cast some of them at the beginning. Honestly, it was exciting and then disappointing, unfortunately, because he didn't really do anything.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for the question, Some Drunk Canadian. Up next, optional player asks, continuing from last week's episode, and could be asked too rough because mechs. Why doesn't something like BattleTech or Xcom get considered as the next big game? For all, could a turn-based StarCraft game be something to get excited about? Or are we wanting an RTS, a TBS, which is turn-based strategy, or just some form of strategy game?
I've got to reread that again. Why doesn't something like BattleTech or XCOM get considered as the next big game? Now, I've been playing a lot of BattleTech, and it's very, very heavily strategy based. I'm trying to do something that's literally near impossible in the game for a run. So optional player might be like a really big fan of what I'm doing. But as far as a StarCraft turn-based game, I think it would be really cool, but I don't know how they'd be able to incorporate it. Because usually when you're talking about a turn-based strategy game, you would have to have like not just an HP stat and some attack stat. You have like other different options and different kind of movements that you've got to move because I don't really know how to explain it. I can't really see StarCraft being a turn-based game because I've just been doing StarCraft for so long. But yeah.
What do you guys think? Would a turn-based strategy game be all right, or?
Nah.
I mean, I don't know. Show me the game, you know?
I mean, I
think
played
and I agree on a lot of things here. I'm like,
I've played turn-based strategy games. Like, I've been playing Banner Saga recently. I mean, it'd be like auto chess, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Auto chess is an option, and it's somewhat popular, but we don't play it.
Well, I play it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, me and Artosis don't play it.
What do you think, Nate?
I really would I would play the shit out of like a reskinned XCOM that was skinned like SC2 or like in that universe. The phrase saying like next big game, I'm like, I don't know. Like those games are popular. They, as far as I'm aware, when their new launches come out, they're like any other single player game. XCOM is great. XCOM is fantastic. I went down that rabbit hole. Jeff got me into that. That's awesome. But I don't know that I'd say next big thing. I'd love a StarCraft version of it. I'd take that. It'd be fun. Do I think it would take over? No. Would I enjoy it? Yes.
Yeah, I think there's something.
With Nate. I think the reason I can't visually see it is because I didn't play XCOM, but I played BattleTech, and that's basically like giant robots. So yeah, and now that Nate mentions that XCOM, I could see StarCraft universe in that kind of game, even though I've never played it. I've seen it though, for sure.
Optional player. Hope that answers your question. Next up, Polly asks, why does Zerg have a start supply of 14 and Terran and Toss 15? Does that make so much difference? With the gas trick, they could have 16 workers before the first Overlord with the cost of just 12 minerals.
The hatchery supply, right?
I think so. I think that's the reason. I believe so, because they're always going to get the hatch, right?
And because it's cheaper, it's literally 100 minerals cheaper, so it shouldn't give as much supply.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
There
we go. We solved it. All right. Walk Like a Human asks, what if a billionaire was secretly a huge StarCraft nerd and wanted to host an enormous StarCraft/StarCraft 2 tournament after COVID, of course? What would you like that to look like? Where would it take place? What would the prize pool and the prize structure be? What special luxury features would there be?
All right, it's on a beach, probably Hawaii. I'm allowed to drink mojitos while I'm casting. Best tournament ever.
I'm going.
As soon as this lockdown shit's over, please
we
sign
did
me up.
that.
I'll work for free.
Where were you for Home Story Cup 20? Because that was basically exactly what that was.
Saving money.
That's a fake island, and that was
yeah.
it's a lot cheap. It's a lot cheaper for me to get to Hawaii from here than it is to get to Berlin.
I would do the Las Vegas thing. I'd want that.
Yeah,
Las Vegas.
Hell yeah, come out here. Let's party.
There were a couple of IPLs there too. Yeah, I guess people, the tournament organizers ask themselves this question, and then they do it.
I feel like if there was a billionaire that wanted to spend a lot of money, I would want to see something more like a pro league emerge, because I think it's like better for long term. One big tournament never really does anything, right? I don't want StarCraft to ever be like Dota in that regard. I know that they have all the millionaires and shit, and the pros probably would prefer that, but it doesn't feel as healthy in a lot of ways, even though they make more money and it gets more hype and more viewers. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it doesn't feel quite correct, right?
I think they would agree.
They have majors. I think they have majors leading into the international.
Yeah, I know they do have some, but it doesn't, like, maybe we could call our other shit majors, but I'm like, I don't know. I like a more steady, more even keel through the year. I don't know.
If you're a billionaire, you're doing both. It's tournaments, Las Vegas, Hawaii, and this pro league.
Hell yeah.
Down for that. Okay, we got it. Solved. Thank you.
Take all the casters to the beach and make a movie about it. All right, I'm ready. I want that vacation. Give me that paid vacation, baby. Give me that paid vacation.
Yeah.
One of my biggest gripes about any kind of event I've gone to is that there's not enough seats. So if a billionaire was hosting it, there should just be enough seats, and they're all just recliners, just for everybody, because I couldn't.
They have massage features built in
all day and having not a single spot to sit except for when I was competing, and this happens so often.
That was the biggest scandal about MLG DC. It was before I was in StarCraft, but I had friends who worked at that event, and they were like, "Yeah, we just couldn't find any seats."
Yeah. You know, here's the thing: if you're a billionaire out there, you don't have to wait till after COVID. I mean, after 2 weeks of multiple health screens and asking everyone to quarantine, you could surprise us casters.
Yeah,
with a trip to a private island where we could pretend things were normal, just for a moment in time.
As long as there's a guy there.
What's up, lady?
My only rider is there has to be a guy there whose sole job is to make us Mai Tais and mojitos. That's it. All right. 100%. He can make other stuff too, but as long as he can do those 2 drinks, we're good.
Down. All right. Thank you for the question. We can all dream, huh? Grandpa Watson.
Artosis really had lost in that question, He's
It'd be so much fun. I miss it all so much.
I'm so thirsty all of a sudden.
Seems StarCraft 2 fans are just hardcore RTS fans and like StarCraft 2 just because it is the best RTS out there. Is there an actual major following of the lore? Just as Warcraft transitioned from RTS to WoW and Hearthstone, does this provide a template for the future of StarCraft lore? Card game, turn-based strategy game, or is the lore dead?
Rough.
Yeah.
So
the other 90% of players
site, because I didn't get all of it. On the Twitch, but I don't see it there.
Okay, so is there a major following of the lore? Because he gets the impression that we're all RTS fans. Are there basically big lore fans that will follow the StarCraft lore into other types of games like they have with Warcraft?
Yes.
This is a tough one, because every time I've played, like whenever I stream or if I've talked with somebody, I've never met another lore person. Literally, I would sit there and I would talk about it, and people be like, "Okay, I agree with it because I've seen this in the campaign." But if I were to actually open up the StarCraft book that I have, the original StarCraft book where it has actual lore and art and all that stuff in it, I don't think anybody I would talk to would know anything about it. So I don't think that there's a very huge following for the lore, just because I feel like Blizzard just didn't promote it enough.
Hmm.
And one of the biggest things about older games I've noticed is that when you purchase an older game, they have lore and they have books and things like that. Nowadays, they really don't have that. It's just kind of like a movie that you're watching as you're playing a game.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would love to see future games out there, especially gaming companies, or if like Frost Giant Studios creates their new strategy game, if they have like a lore book, that would be absolutely amazing. Yeah.
I think this is another one of those echo chamber things where like most of us are in the competitive mindset. People don't get viewers streaming co-op or campaign or anything like that on Twitch. It's all about competitive. So I feel like the places that we go where we interact with people, we don't run into those folks as much. But I lurk a lot in the co-op Discord. There's a massive StarCraft one, lots of great people in there. People literally like thousands of messages every single day, just like conversing about random stuff, could be, would be, and the competitive base is much smaller compared to the majority, which the campaign players, the co-op players, and the people who do that stuff love the lore. I am one of those people.
Okay.
I gotta say that lore and world is different. Like, I've also read the books and I like the lore okay, but I'm not excited for StarCraft, the mobile game, because I'm going to learn what else happened to Kerrigan when she turned into a Fire Lord God thingy. I don't care about that. But I do think that learning more about the universe, like I would absolutely play another game that just mentioned Terran, Zerg, Protoss. Absolutely. I think people like the world a lot.
Yeah. There's some cool elements in there. The Kala's cool.
Yeah. I mean, like there is actually really cool lore, like how the Protoss came to be is pretty neato. Or how ghosts get trained is pretty fucked up. Like there's a lot of cool stuff in there, but I just would play anything that it's StarCraft because it is such a recognizable universe.
Cool. All right, good question. Good answers.
I gotta go now.
All right, Zombie Grub, where can people find you? Where can they check you out?
You can check me out on my Twitch, twitch.tv/zombiegrub, Twitter ZG Gaming, YouTube Zombie Grub as well, and I'm going to go play some D&D, guys. So thanks for inviting me.
Good luck.
Have fun,
you
guys.
roll all 20s like my opponents on ladder.
Well, I'm the DM, but yeah,
Oh, shit.
yeah. I hope I roll all 20s.
Oh,
really
shit.
fuck up my desk. Yeah. All right, see ya.
Thanks for coming, Zombie Grub. See you later.
Bye bye.
All right. We will persevere. We will push through the last 5 questions. Up next. She dodged Fear Dragon's question. Good choice. All right. Fear Dragon asks, if Frost Giant has a race that requires a power structure for all of its buildings to function, like Orc Generator or something, and said power structure gets sniped, do we still call it an Artosis Pylon, or do we call it an Artosis Generator? Wah, wah, wah. Well, it sounds like it would be the Protoss race, so it's definitely the race that I'll be playing in that game. Thanks, Fear Dragon. Up next, Refrigerator asks, would spawn matches be an option to consider for StarCraft 2 instead of tournaments? It would be difficult to get money into the hands of less popular players, but is that feasible? If we do have them, where do I find them? Both StarCraft 2 and Foreign Brood War. I don't think I see much aside from Alpha X. Yeah, so that's a big part of the pro scene in Brood Wars. The Koreans play against each other in sponsored matches where they win money against each other. For like $20 and up, basically they'll play each other, or sometimes even less, I think. I don't know. I don't think anything like that exists. Would it be interesting? I think we have so many tournaments right now that it would just kind of be more content that I'm not sure if it would get that much viewership. All right.
True.
We'll just go with that. I guess you guys agree by your silence. Thank you for the question, Refrigerator. Alessander asks, would Brood War be as popular in Korea without star players like Flash and Jaedong that have that something extra about them. StarCraft players almost never have both extreme skill and that WWE showmanship that EG had. Is that showmanship created by casters and managers enough? Do we need that spice?
Great.
Those players? Is that what we're talking about?
It's a really good question.
Like star power versus skill type of question, I think it is.
I think it has to. I think you dip your toes into a lot of things like marketing, like touching on the EG part of things, for example, and how they, like for example, the joining Idra and Huck and Rivals Unite, and like the whole, or like when Jadon was announced, and like how big of a deal that was, and how big of a deal they could make it seem like, and all of that will play a part. But also, the personalities of players and genuine rivalries where people actually dislike each other is thankful. It's a good thing usually for the ecosystem.
Yeah. I mean, just think about how many people still reference Huck and like Tats Halo and all that crap, right? Like, that was some good shit. People still talk about that. People will bring it up randomly.
It was halluc, my dude. That's so good. And and Greg would give the fucking finger to the camera sometimes, or to Huck on camera. Like it's. Yeah, we don't have as much spiciness now, but the cameras on the DreamHack thing are kind of doing that, right? Like that is the kind of thing that the kind of idea that drives this type of content, I guess, forward, right? Like the cameras on DreamHack, some players, are getting spicy. Like Skillos was doing the sunglasses celebration, and I think stuff like that is always good.
I think it's really rare to get the type of personality nowadays, because when you look at it, like early on in a game, you can just get some really creative players getting to the top, people like Huck, right? Who are going to automatically showboat and have a good time and like make a show. But over time, as the game gets more figured out, you get more and more to people who just quietly sit there and practice their ass off and get unbelievably mechanically strong. And it's really rare to get someone like a Parting or a Rainer who can win major tournaments, but also have that kind of pizzazz. It's just, I think it's a different personality type. It's not that, one is inherently better or smarter or something. It's just to get players like that. I think we do have people like that. And obviously everyone's on a range in that area, but it's hard to get those Huck type personalities that can still be top tier when the game gets so mechanical.
100% agreed.
Good question though. And I think people are learning to do it better, like you mentioned with skills and stuff, where it's like, I mean, even if you're not naturally like that, just adding a little bit is gonna people love it. People love to see a little bit more emotion and stuff. And even some of these silly memes like put on the captain's hat and shit. Like I'm like, that's that helps. That helps quite a bit, I think.
Yeah, Hearthstone.
And I think we're back.
Are we back? Okay.
No.
All right. So, wow, that was crazy. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. Anything else to say on that? Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's just hard to get those people that are winning championships and acting like that, I guess.
Kind of like trying to bring out that WWE aspect into the competitive scene, just really hyping up everybody when someone comes in. What did you all think about smack talkers when it comes to playing in StarCraft? I noticed they kind of died out in StarCraft. Compared to the past, we're more so mannered nowadays. It feels like. But I do feel like a lot of people kind of hyped up that part of the community, especially if you consider like
these are Combat-X. These are Combat-X were my favorites, obviously. I really hated them. Especially I hated Deezer at the time. But looking back on it, and for a very long time, I mean, he did so much for me. So and for my community, and just to offer a contrast of sorts where people could root for me very easily, because it's very easy to root for against him, basically, right? Like because he's like cheating and shit. It's
heals are important.
yeah.
No one wants to be a heel though, right? That's
Right.
the heel is always the second most popular person.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, but there's in the WWE, for example, in their business model, like heels, like being a heel is not so bad, because if the kids, they will buy like their favorite character, right, their toy,
Yeah.
and then to beat him up, if you're the worst heel, all the kids will get.
Oh, that's very true. Yeah, that's actually a really good point.
Yeah,
Buying Cat's characters, beating up Deezer.
I didn't just want Power Ranger toys, man. I wanted some villain toys so I could kick their ass.
Yeah, totally. You had to have Shredder to go with your Ninja Turtles.
Of course.
Yeah.
You guys
Alright.
make the Turtles win though? Shredder
Yeah, of course.
almost always won for me in my games.
Well, I followed the TV lore where
That's
they're not
dark.
allowed to actually use their weapons, so they all just got murdered every time.
All right. Excellent question, Alessandro. Thank you much. 2 more questions here. Oblivious asks, Tooth and Tail has a model of choosing your units before going in. I wonder if we took it a step further and had options for heroes as well in those slots/caps. Would that be a nice way to let people who want heroes have them and not force people who don't want to play with them do so? So I'll explain it real quick in case you guys didn't play a lot of Tooth and Tail. Basically, you get 6 picks before going in the game. And it'll show what your picks are when you're going up against your opponent, if I recall correctly. And basically, you can do it however you want, and it splits the units so that it's easy to look at, because it's a set amount of time you have to draft what you want to play with. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, right? So you can do 2-2-2, you can do 4-1-1, whatever it is that you want. And there was a lot of strategy in that. Tooth and Tail is actually one of the best RTS ever made. Yeah, and it was really good too. And it was like, oh, you're that type of player that wants, the early rush, so you have a mole, but that takes away one of your late game.
So you can see your opponent as they're tinkering with it too?
I'm trying to remember exactly, because I did play it a bunch on stream.
I can't remember if it showed you the other guy's deck at the start.
That would be cool if you could
remember either.
Maybe you could alternate picks or something, like make it fair somehow.
Yeah, it definitely could be expanded upon, right? Like counter picking and things like that. Just to see, because you would want, like, for instance, there was like a Baneling type unit that was good if your opponent got Zerglings, but if your opponent got Marines, it was bad, right? And so actually, I would just draft all 3 every game, but that gave me 3 tier 1s, which made me a little bit weaker in the late game. So it was like, it was an interesting concept. But what do you guys think about the idea of that, I guess, and maybe putting heroes into that?
So my only big problem would be that if there was a very competitive scene, it would be kind of like this would actually be kind of difficult to balance around not everyone just choosing the same unit composition all the time. Like there being a best unit composition, that kind of thing. And the way that you would fix that, though, is by actively like moving the game, steering the pot, like adding new units or removing units. Or I think it's a really cool idea, and I think that's kind of like it goes hand in hand with the discussion earlier about like potentially like a business model that like makes money over time. Like I think that's a good way to do that too.
Yeah, I think I've already kind of talked about this a lot. I think it's a really good idea, and I think the idea that people would find the best and stick with it actually works in favor of competitive balance, because if people kind of come together to those agreements, then everybody will just do it, and it makes the volatility a little bit less of an issue. As long as you're not making massive changes, like we're going to nerf this unit by 15% and buff its counter by 15% so that the whole game breaks for a week,
I see. Yeah, I guess I just enjoy the chaos. I enjoy the volatility, so I wouldn't want it to go away.
Yeah, but that's what StarCraft would be right now. Would be the game where you can't switch anything, and you still get that. You still get it.
All right. Cool idea. Cool question. Thank you, Oblivious. Last question from Shampoo McTavish. What's your favorite novel? All right, that's a bit different. You guys have a favorite novel that you've read?
I don't think I've ever read a novel.
I don't have a favorite book.
A novel?
Yeah, novel's just a fiction book, basically, right?
Yeah.
I don't think
that's what a novel is.
Book.
All right.
I always like the Redwall series, but I'll give a somewhat answer. I always enjoyed The Great Gatsby. I love the struggle of the characters.
Damn.
You read the books. I don't really read novels. I read more like art, or I don't know how to explain it.
Well, you said you read like StarCraft books and stuff. Those would be
basically
novels, right?
concept books that go over like everything in that particular universe kind of thing.
Oh,
And
okay.
they expand. You can talk about like Dungeons and Dragons, things like that, but never like a model
I see.
or a novel. I mean.
Yeah, like a
If-
novel implies like a story that you follow a character through to the end and stuff like that, right?
Mm.
If you liked Tooth and Tail, Artosis, the book version of that is Redwall. It's very good.
Okay.
Very good.
I'll try to check it out. My
A long
favorite
book,
novel. I don't really have a favorite. I read a lot of them, but I guess like I think Musashi was really amazing. The whole Dune series was really amazing, and more recently the Three Body Problem. That whole series was really, really fucking good. That was the best new sci-fi by far. I could go on. I don't know. That's the only thing I do other than StarCraft is read. So, okay, that's all of the questions. All the Patreon questions. Thank you so much to everyone, including our God tier Shane and our $100 tier Astrofin, Jerry Wang, and Blanker. We really appreciate you guys so much. For supporting us on the Patreon for the Pylon Show. Okay, the Pylon Show at patreon.com. Patreon.com/the Pylon Show. How else can I say it? There you go. Check it out. Thank you so much, guys. This was a great episode. A lot of really great conversations. Thanks again to Zombie Grub for dropping by. And for you guys, let's start with you, Ruff. Where can people find more of you, check you out, follow you, keep up to date, everything?
They can check me out at obviously twitch.tv, Ruff13, so the RUFF13, and then Ruff_stuff for YouTube, and then for Twitter, Ruff_SC2. Yep.
Excellent. Cats. Where can people find more cats?
At RootCats on Twitter and RootCats on Twitch.
Easy. What about you, Nathanius?
I don't have any plugs that I want to make. I just want to say if you live in the US, please vote. That's all I ask.
There you go. All right. And as for me, big thanks to the Pylon Show team. But I will be back in just a couple minutes here with This Week in StarCraft. But guys, thanks so much for dropping by. This was a great discussion. And we'll see you next time.
Alrighty. Good luck.
Hey everybody, welcome back. It's time for This Week in StarCraft. We knew ahead of time Zombie Grub had to run, so we just kind of moved it to the end of the show to get her for as long as possible. Almost made the whole show. Thanks again to everyone for coming on. Don't forget, anything I talk about here in This Week in StarCraft are in our wonderful show notes made by the one and only Alessander, attached everywhere where you see the Pylon Show. So definitely check it out, pylonshow.com and everything. All right, so let's start out on page number 3, some of the upcoming events that we'll be talking about. ESL Cups, ASL, GSL, DreamHack. I mean, that's the stuff, isn't it? Moving forward, we have ESL Open Cups, a bunch of the dates moving forward through the 30th of November, different tournaments that you can go ahead and join. We've had some exciting storylines popping up, like Solar almost won 3 of them. I guess we'll see that in a second. Let's take a look as we go into ESL Cup Korea. You can see number 41, Solar got second. In number 42, Solar won over Dark, the same player in the finals. Looking at ESL Cup EU, Solar made it up to the round of 4 where Raynor defeated him. And of course, the finals, Raynor versus Clem. Could you have anything else when Raynor and Clem were fighting? Oh my God. Well, I guess Big Gabe would be the other one that could be up there, but did die to Laser in the round of 8. And then ESL Cup NA, we had Solar over Armani in that finals. So big congrats to Solar for almost getting that, what people were calling the ESL Cup Triple Crown this week. Moving forward, ASL Season 10, we have a round of 4. It is very Zerg heavy. Larva versus Zero on one side of the bracket. Soma versus Flashes Random on the other side. Something I find interesting, this is 3 of the same top 4 as last season, which is similar to what we have going on in GSL as well. Moving forward to GSL, you see that we have our finals. The top 4 was TY, Stats, Armani, and Maru. The finals will be TY versus Maru, which honestly is our best finals that we've had in like the last 3 years. I went to Game 7, and Game 7 was incredibly close last time. I think this is going to be a sick finals for sure. Definitely make sure to check it out. November 1st, KST, 3 p.m. So whatever time that is for you, it'll probably be the 31st. Spooky Halloween stream. Going forward, DreamHack SC2 Masters 2020 Winter Europe. We're still in the group stage. As you can see, Rainer and a Laser lead those groups at the moment, but they are still being played a lot. It's not going to end. Well, actually, it says end date. Whatever. We will actually, I don't know if it'll be next week, maybe the week after, we'll be going over a lot of the DreamHack stuff on the Pylon show. So we'll get you caught up on that, but there's a little preview. Jumping over to the North American group stage, we have Scarlet and Namshar leading right there, as you can see at the moment. Going forward, we had Special take down Sham in the finals of the LATAM one. Special wins once again. Very common for that area. The group stage of China. Looks like they have not started those as of yet, but you can see the big names all in there. Jishi, Said, Cyan, Time, Shy, all them, and more. We also have the Taiwan, Hong Kong, Japan, and everything. We have Nice actually taking down Haas in the finals, 4-3. Very close one right there. Congrats to Nice for knocking Haas down. Also have the Oceania/ROA. Ender ended up winning this one over Scyther, the amazing Zerg player from the Philippines, having a great tournament run, as you can see. Congrats to him. We also have Korea, of course. We had the bracket playoff because they want the top 6, and it looks like Trap and Innovation were able to come out on top. Oh wow, Innovation 3-0 over DRG. That's kind of crazy. Congrats to both of them. Also have the Masters winter schedule. As you can see, just kind of shows you what the schedule is coming up. November 10th through 15th is going to be that season finals, which is going to be dynamite once again, no doubt. Moving forward, we have Olima League, the October monthly. Dark won 4-2 over Creator. Really doing well in these online tournaments as of late. Congrats to him. We have the OSC King of the Hill weekly, and Special ran most of the hill with Miomeka and Zeomech, each taking win, but Soul ended up as the king at the end of it. Check that out over on Creighton's stream. We also have Sentimiento Latino. Paco Mike, 2-0 over Ryu. Congrats to Paco Mike for taking that one down. We also have Battle of the Americas. Looks like Semper took down Special. Oh, wow. I'm used to Cham winning this tournament. But it looks like Semper and Special making it to the end right there. Congrats to them. Good showing by Semper. Semper playing Protoss. Okay. All right. I'm listening. Big victory there over Special. All right. Next one up. La Espira Desafiantes. Winter 2020. Chaos Fate. 3-0 over Destroyer TT for the $200 prize pool. Congrats to him. That English stream was on Cranky Ducklings. We also have the Owl Die Weekly. Justice Simon once again taking it down over Hyderia in the finals. Looks like number 55 had Ranger 3-2 over Beastork. And that's all casted, I believe, over by Red Gunner Guy. Legacy Weekly Japan. We have Vice Ravana. 2-1 over Psyarch. Look at that. Someone knocking Psyarch out of the finals. He generally tends to win a lot of the Japanese tournaments over there, so congrats to Vice Ravana. We also have the ladder heroes. Miomeka coming out on top. Very fantastic showing by Miomeka, the Maru killer himself over Nina. You can check that out over on Fear Dragon's website. Keeping that ladder very, very active. We also have CSO Challenger. Number 7 registrations are open on Challenge. Any open from players bronze to 3,300 MMR. So good if you are a newer player. Also have the Sugar 2v2 Cup. DRG Ling and Prince take down Practice X and Ghostly Swarm 3-0 in the finals. We've been having a lot of these cups lately, and we definitely do see Prince and DRG Ling showing up a lot. Practice X as well. Congrats to all involved. We have the Wardy TV European League 2020. Clem took down Showtime 4-3 in the finals. The prize pool of $2,500, of course, over on Wardy's Twitch channel. Do check it out. The Exxon Cup. Open, we had Nina take this one down over Hellraiser in the finals of number 15. And number 14, we had Sai taking down. Sai's really been doing a lot in these online tournaments lately over Nina in that one as well. Check that out over, it looks like Winter is actually casting this one. Definitely worth your time to go check that out, I would say. We also have the Sheer Shoddy Open birthday celebration. And Nina over Hellraiser here once again. These players getting very far. Over on Sheer Shoddy's Twitch. UA Expert Tournament. And so this is a Spanish college, and so a lot of the players are from Latin America and Spain. It looks like right now we have Special versus Solir and Botvinnik versus the Zerg Lord left here. Looks like Special definitely the favorite of this tournament to end up winning. Check that out over on Demon Swap TV or the Portuguese stream Cosmos SC2. All right, the Alpha X Pro Series. We had nice 5-0 over Bomber. Oh my god, that's actually kind of that's kind of surprising and impressive. Bomber did make it into GSL this year, so definitely is not in terrible shape. But good showing there by Nice. Check that out over on Alpha X SC2 on Afrika TV. We also had Massa versus Silky. Massa taking him down 5-4. Congrats to Massa. It looks like that's on their Trovo.live on Alpha X SC2. We also have Patience versus Time. 5-2. Oh, nice showing by Patience. And yeah, that's over on their Trovo Live as well. Then we have Patience once again, but losing this time beyond 5-2 over Patience. Damn, nice. Again, over on their Trovo Live. We have a lot to go through, guys. When we missed it this week in StarCraft, there's a lot that happened for 2 weeks. It looks like we had the Alpha X series special 14. Okay. We had Rogue over Zest 4-3. Congrats to them. Looks like Jolun, as I've been told, special Zest and Ragnarok all kind of involved in a different one. We also have number 13. And this one, Zest over Rogue 4-2. All right. Beyond Innovation, both involved as well. Not winning any maps, though, it looks like. Ouch. We have the Alpha X Junior Championship, Season 10. And it looks like Aragfire going to end up taking that one down 4-0 over Ghosty, with Sly Crab and Exostriker both making that top 4. And Aragfire is only 13 years old. Holy crap. That is pretty impressive. Ghosty, age 14, unable to take him down. We have Afrika World 64, where Dream defeated Hurricane 4-0 in the finals. It looks like Patience didn't show up for some reason, and Prince was defeated by Dream. Congrats to Dream for taking down the two Protoss players very strongly. We have Mapper's Delight number 3. And Goblin took that one down 5-2. Oh my god, that's the first time I've seen a picture of Goblin. There he is. 5-2 over B. Congrats to Goblin for doing a good job on those new maps. Bet you there was a lot of proxies involved. Hardest thing on new maps, isn't it? Figuring out all those proxy locations. All right, we have Amantes de StarCraft 2 Gladiadores. Looks like this is just a Brazilian tournament for the top 8 Brazilian players who did not make it into DreamHack Masters. And only one of the matches has been played so far, so you can definitely still check that out. Still early on. We have Platinum Heroes Season 7. And $100 prize pool. Bronze 3 to Platinum 1, organized by Platinum Heroes. This is one of Creighton's many projects. You can check that out. Discord.gg/F5GQQPP. I don't know what that is all about. That must be a randomized one, but yeah, you can check that out if you are within that MMR range. All right, the Singapore SC2 Online. It's like Leo Rusher ended up taking down Dark Impure in the finals. Congrats to him. We also have the Pizza Pie Bi-Weekly. Vindicta wins 3-2 over Nina. And that is, wow, that's Vindicta's first pizza. I'm actually kind of surprised about that. But congratulations. It looks like we did not have Starkiller in there this week. Too bad. But definitely check that one out. That's always a fun one to keep up on the Pylon show. You can win a pizza. We also have Winner. I'll buy you effing dinner. And this is now $60 worth of takeout or delivery to the winner. $30 split between 2 players with the most exciting game. This is from some drunk Canadians stream, so check that out on Twitch. Yeah, and the next one is going to be November 7th, so coming right up here in about 9 days. All right, Rank Roulette. In case you guys haven't seen it, this is Hearthstone's new show. It is absolutely hilarious. I was lucky enough to be his first guest on there. As far as I know, I'm still winning, but do check it out. It's just some hilarious, great content where Hearthstone's editor puts together clips from people who sent it in themselves playing, and you try to figure out what rank you think that they are. And you can see how grossly out of touch all of us who only work with professional StarCraft are with how good players actually are. Myself, Uppetry, Zelda, and Euthermal have all been guests so far. I don't believe there's been another one quite yet.
Highly recommended. Hilarious content. Go watch.
It is. It's some of the best stuff being put out in StarCraft right now. Big cheers to Hearthstone for coming up with that. Awesome. All right. La Espira Podcast, Season 2, Episode 5 is now out. Yeah, so that's kind of like Spanish the Pylon show. Check that out if you speak Spanish and you're sick of listening to me. The Cascadia Cup Weekly, Some Drunk Canadian presents number 2. It plays on November 5th. And the prize pool is $50. So yeah, go and join up. We also have Demi C Weekly. This is open to anyone living in the C slash Southeast Asia / Australian region. And $55 USD. It has OSC points as well. It's going to be cast by Cranky Ducklings. So sign up if you're in the area. Otherwise, just check it out on stream. Also, Dare Play Like a Pro tutorial. A build order is basically a recipe, and Maynard is the chef in today's Dare Play Like a Pro tutorial on StarCraft 2 build orders. All right, excellent. Maynard has a little tutorial out. Definitely check it out. This is someone who has really taken like some deliberate practice to himself and strives to improve. It's actually yeah, I bet you that's really, really good. Maynard has come a long way with his StarCraft skills, so definitely knows a lot about getting better. Check it out. ProBots 2020 Season 3, of course, over on ES Champ. You can check out youtube.com/ES Champ. Looks like it's starting today or tomorrow. So if you're interested in StarCraft 2 AIs, this is the place for you. We also have the Archives Book Club. This is over one of Aerot's projects. And they talk about awesome books and what you can learn with that. Yeah, so check it out. On August 31st, Halloween, they're going to have one on twitch.tv/Aerot. And they're going to be discussing the topic of tacit knowledge in StarCraft. Aerot's really well-versed on this type of stuff and reads a lot. So definitely kind of a cool thing if you're into that. And actually, if you're not, you probably should be. It's so interesting, trust me. All right, moving forward. No Gamer Left Behind Tournament number 3. It's supporting able gamers January 22nd through 24th. Yep, we actually advertised this last week as well. We'll definitely follow it as it moves forward. There's been some really kind of cool ones. I believe, I'm not mistaken, Neuro won last time. But they give like handicaps to a bunch of really strong streamers and stuff and have kind of an interesting tournament. So yeah, we'll report on that more as it moves forward. All right, this week in Brood War, we have the BSL Season 10, and you can see they're doing, for the round of 8, they're doing round robin play for the BSL, which is the Big Foreign Star League. And you can see a bunch of the people that you would expect are leading the rankings. Look at that. DeWalt just crushing it, 6-0. Bonneth 4-1 so far. And then, kind of a little bit more of a surprise up in 3rd place. And then Eon Zerg right behind, another player you'd expect to be up at the top of those standings. So kind of an interesting format. Oh, my Terran bro Koget, he's having a hard time there in 8th place. But hey, he made it to the top 8, so that's pretty sick. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting format. Check it out. It's cast by Gypsy and Nyokin. So definitely a fun one there. All right, we also have the Brood War G's Weekly. Whoa! Eon Zerg won! I always expect to see a Korean win this one. But it looks like Eon Zerg was on a killing spree. He beat Zealot, a GSL player, ZVZ, in the round of 4. And then Spire, one of the top amateur Zerg players in Korea, ZVZ, in the finals. Congrats to Eon Zerg. That's a big victory. So sick. Such a strong player. Yeah. Thanks to Russ Brain for organizing. We also have the Ultimate Battle event. Light has been on a killing spree. 5-4 over Best, and now 5-4 over Sulky as well. That's his 6th King of the Hill win in a row. Just showing the beast mode that his Terran is, the second best Terran in the world by far. Awesome. Definitely check it out. All right, we also have the Rookie Star League. Jonah 3-1 over Slow Zerg. Maverick 3-1 over Fanta. Congrats. This is 1350 MMR cap. So if you're a new player, that's the place for you. We also have the TDR Nation Wars 2, Week 10. Poland 4-3 over Team Europe. Canada 6-0 over Peru. Whoa, that's insane. That's crazy, 6-0 over Peru. Peru has such a strong scene. And USA 4-3 over Chile. Very nice. And it looks like already $1,200 prize pool, so pretty sick. Check that out on the TDR channel. We also have Caster Muse Narok Star League Season 3. It's in the round of 8 right now. You see Spire, Ample, Ice, Yuck, all making it through in those 2 recent groups. Also joining them are Piano, Bishop, Miso, and YSC. So some really strong players left over, including the random player Bishop, who was a Terran player as well, and actually started random before Flash. So kind of cool. Check it out over on Caster Muse's channel. All right, Tournament of Legends. It's like it's a tournament in random mode. Who's the most complete player in his abilities with the other races? Oh, that's kind of cool. So in a random versus random tournament, I guess you really see who goes to the top on that. Dandy and Ultra, no big surprise. 2 big names within the foreign scene there. So congrats to them. A couple Terran players ripping it up with the random. We also have the Russian Cyber Cup 2020. And I believe this is actually being moved online. We'll update you guys some more with that. It's like, I know that there's a date that it's been announced, but I'm fairly certain they're going to switch it over because of the coronavirus and everything. Everyone's having a hard time traveling. A lot of top players from around the world all qualified. But yeah, we'll talk more about that. Maybe we'll have a show recapping BSL and RCG and stuff. All right, and that does it. That was This Week in StarCraft. Big thanks to Alessandro for putting that all together. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And a big cheers to the Pylon Show staff. Yeah, and that does it for this.
Just a heads up that the export of the video to YouTube and podcast might take a little bit longer. I'm still getting set up from transitioning and evacuating and moving back in. And then this one, the stream dropped a couple times, so I need to stitch the video together to make sure there's not these drops and patch the audio in there. But we'll get it out as quickly as we can.
Alrighty. Well, there you have it from the producer himself. Thank you, Cobra. Glad that you can be back at your house. Watch out for those fires. Keep safe. All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We'll see you next week on The Pylon Show.
Bye-bye.